Chapter 1544. What a good elder of the Holy Parliament. It seems like you still haven't given up on the Mother Earth primordial stone. When Yetion saw that elder, his gaze turned cold as he sneered in his heart. This elder failed to take the Mother Earth primordial stone and actually sent people to secretly follow him all the way here. He was simply courting death. Chen Wuqing walked out of the valley and didn't notice that someone was following him. When he saw the valley in front of him, he couldn't help but smile. It seemed like he came here specifically to look for Yetion. "Kid, stay here." Just when he was about to enter the valley, a cold voice suddenly sounded behind him, following which several figures appeared and a violent aura came crashing over like a tsunami. "Who is it?" Chen Wuqing reacted quickly. He suddenly turned around and stomped on the ground. His figure frantically retreated several hundred meters and barely avoided the incoming attack. "It's you guys!" Chen Wuqing stabilized his body and couldn't help but cry out in alarm when he saw the faces in front of him. The people who appeared in front of him were the elder of the Holy Parliament and 3 black-clothed martial artists. "Stinking brat, you have obtained the Mother Earth primordial stone and should have left with your Saint Adjudicator. Who would have thought that you would actually come to the divine Wind Mountain Range alone? You are truly gutsy." The elder laughed and said coldly, "You are a martial artist from the 3 lower realms. Even if your talent is very strong, you shouldn't stay in the 3 middle realms for too long. Now obediently hand over the Mother Earth primordial stone." Chen Wuqing's brows suddenly sank, and he said sternly, "Sir, you are an elder of the Holy Parliament. You are actually doing this kind of shady business. You are truly shameless." "Shameless?" The elder didn't get angry, but laughed instead. He said coldly, "Kid, you don't know how precious the Mother Earth primordial stone is. For the Mother Earth primordial stone, I, Yang Zhongxiu, can be shameless for once. Moreover, as long as I kill you, who will know what happened here? Attack!" After saying that, the elder gave a low roar and signaled the 3 black-clothed men behind him to attack. The 3 black-clothed men took a step forward. Wild killing intent surged out and forced Chen Wuqing to continuously retreat. The 3 of them were very strong. 2 were mid-stage mid-gods, and 1 was late-stage mid-god. By contrast, Chen Wuqing was only an early-stage god. If he had to deal with one of the 3 of them alone, he might have a chance. However, if he had to deal with all 3 of them at the same time, he would have no chance at all. "Die!" The 3 black-clothed cultivators roared at the same time and struck out with their palms. 3 violent auras condensed together, converging into a massive palm shadow that crazily pressed down on Chen Wuqing. Chen Wuqing felt an almost crushing force descend upon him. Although he knew that he could not resist this force, he still fought back with all his might. He struck out with his palm and at the same time retreated madly. Boom! There was an explosion in the void. Chen Wuqing's palm was directly shattered. Suddenly, a destructive force fell, smashing fiercely towards him. The ground within a radius of several thousand meters was directly torn apart. Gravel flew everywhere, and grass and trees collapsed. In the next moment, Chen Wuqing let out a blood-curdling scream. His entire body was almost torn apart by the immense pressure. At the moment of life and death, a strange power surged out and wrapped around him, blocking most of the power. Then, a figure rushed out of the valley in the distance and landed beside Chen Wuqing. Yetion. Chen Wuqing barely managed to stabilize his body. His face was as white as paper. Looking at the face in front of him, he could not help but exclaim in surprise. "Are you okay?" Yetion smiled faintly. It was he who had used the heavenly wind battle armor to save Chen Wuqing at the critical moment. "I'm fine." Chen Wuqing forced a smile. Then his body trembled and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Fortunately, Yetion had acted in time. Otherwise, Chen Wuqing would have been a corpse. "Stinky brat, it's you," Yang Zhongxiu exclaimed when he saw Yetion suddenly appear. Then, his face became wild with joy. He shouted, "Lung, stinky brat, I didn't expect you to have not left the Mushin domain. It seems that this elder is going to get 2 Mother of Earth origin stones." Yang Zhongxiu thought that Nie Tian had already left. He only followed Chen Wuching here and did not know that Nie Tian was also here. Nie Tian's appearance was a pleasant surprise for him. "You're Yang Zhongxiu, right?" Nie Tianling sneered. He had already heard Yang Zhongxiu's words. He said solemnly, "If you don't want others to know, don't do it in the first place. As an elder of the Holy Parliament, you actually robbed the chief of the low god appointed by the Holy Parliament. This is not a small crime, right? Stinky brat. Big or small crimes have nothing to do with you. You came here today. Do you still expect to leave alive?" Yang Zhongxiu sneered. The killing intent in his eyes intensified. Nie Tian caused him to lose the Mother of Earth origin stones. Seeing the former again, he could not control his killing intent. "You want to kill me with just these 3 small fries?" Nie Tian glanced at the 3 black-clothed martial artists and sneered. His eyes were full of contempt. He did not put these 3 people in his eyes at all. "Arrogant!" Yang Zhongxiu bellowed. He then looked at the 3 and said furiously, "Kill this brat." The 3 black-clothed martial artists were infuriated by Nie Tian's disdain. They suddenly moved and attacked at the same time. They actually wanted to kill Nie Tian directly. Rumble. They joined hands again. This time, the 3 of them exploded with even more terrifying power. They were determined to kill in one strike. "Nie Tian, be careful." Chen Wuching saw that the situation was not good and cried out in alarm. He knew that Nie Tian's strength had increased to early-stage mid-god. However, he believed that even if Nie Tian's battle strength was stronger than his, it would not be by much. He would not be able to resist 2 mid-stage mid-god and 1 late-stage mid-god. Nie Tian, however, sneered. He then moved his body and released a strange energy. A strange fluctuation appeared in the air and spread across the space within 10,000 meters, enveloping everyone. In the next moment, Nie Tian struck with his sword. The mighty sword shadow was like a ferocious giant beast, roaring and roaring. Rumble. With a loud bang, the 2 forces collided. Violent shockwaves rolled and exploded. Nie Tian was pushed back several hundred meters, but he was not injured. On the other hand, the 3 black-clothed martial artists were sent flying. While they were still in the air, they vomited blood. How is this possible? The 3 black-clothed martial artists forcibly stabilized their bodies. They were stunned and cried out in alarm. The 3 of them had joined hands but were repelled by an early-stage mid-god. Moreover, they were injured. This was too strange. Chen Wuching was also stunned at this scene. He was so shocked that he could not speak. At this moment, he realized that there was a huge gap between his and Nie Tian's battle strength. Nie Qiu and ED were also stunned. They did not expect Nie Tian to be so strong. It's a boundary. Yang Zhongxiu was a divine alchemist. He suddenly realized that he was enveloped by a boundary. His face darkened and he shouted in horror. "Yang Zhongxiu, you are not too stupid." Nie Tian smiled coldly. His eyes were cold and his whole body was releasing a cold, murderous aura. At this moment, he had released the starry river Forbidden Sky. His battle strength had greatly increased. Just now, he had blocked the joint attack of the 3 black-clothed martial artists with a casual swing of his sword. He had even injured them. Chapter 1545. The Forbidden Space Barrier's power exceeded Nie Tian's expectations. He estimated that his battle prowess would increase by at least several times inside the Forbidden Space Barrier. "Smelly brat, you're not a world spiritist. How can you construct such a powerful barrier?" Yang Zhongxiu's eyes widened, his voice trembling. "Who said that only ward masters can construct wards?" Nie Tian said with a cold smile. Then he took a step forward, his killing intent surging from his body to the brim. The 3 black-clothed cultivators were stunned by Nie Tian's aura, involuntarily retreating. "You shouldn't have provoked me." Nie Tianling sneered, sword intent surging from his body, slashing down with heaven slash. Terrifying chaotic flames surged from the sword's shadow as it pounced towards the 3 black-clothed cultivators. The 3 black-clothed cultivators wanted to resist, but they discovered that their strength was being suppressed by a strange force. When they attacked again, they didn't have the same power as before. The seemingly powerful palm strike was instantly submerged by the sword shadow. The three black-clothed cultivators didn't even have time to scream before they died, leaving only three godheads floating in the air. Nietion's figure descended, waving his hand as three godheads appeared in his palm. With a flick of his palm, soul-devouring sword intent gushed out, directly erasing the divine sense inside the godheads. Nietion's attack was decisive, cruel, and vicious. If Cher were here, she would definitely object to his actions. Too much killing intent would only make the evil energy in Nietion's blood more obvious. But Nietion naturally had his reasons for doing this. On one hand, it was because of his monstrous hatred towards the Holy Parliament. On the other hand, if he let these black-clothed cultivators leave, it would inevitably attract more powerful enemies. Since Yang Zhongxiu was an elder of the Holy Parliament, his status was definitely not low. For him, the Holy Parliament would most likely send out over-gods or even supreme gods. If that happened, it would be terrible. You actually dared to kill someone from the Holy Parliament. At that moment, Yang Zhongxiu finally came to his senses. He looked at Nietion with a terrified expression, his eyes filled with extreme shock. Nietion's strength was far beyond his expectations, and Nietion's decisiveness also shocked him. It was hard to imagine that a cultivator from the three lower realms would dare to kill someone from the Holy Parliament. Shen Wuqing's eyes also widened as he looked at Nietion in disbelief. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, who would have believed that a newly promoted mid-god could have such terrifying strength? Just a bunch of small fries, so what if I kill them? With a cold smile, Nietion took a step forward and fixed his eyes on Yang Zhongxiu. The killing intent in his eyes intensified as he said in a deep voice, "Not only do I dare to kill them, but I also dare to kill you. You." Yang Zhongxiu swallowed hard. His face was as pale as a piece of paper. The fear in his heart was written all over his face. With Nietion's decisiveness in killing just now, he would definitely dare to kill him. You can't kill me. I'm an elder of the Holy Parliament. If you kill me, you'll become an enemy of the Holy Parliament. Yang Zhongxiu forced himself to calm down, but his voice couldn't help but tremble. Is that so? Tianling laughed, but his eyes were full of contempt. He was already an irreconcilable enemy of the Holy Parliament. Killing an elder was just enough to vent his hatred. Although Yang Zhongxiu was an elder of the Holy Council, he was clearly different from elders like Yang Wu and Shui Manzhuang. He was a divine alchemy master, but his martial prowess was not strong. He was merely an early-stage mid-god, the same as Nietion. However, his battle prowess was worlds apart from Nietion's. As long as Nietion wanted to, he could kill him in one move at any time. Yang Zhongxiu, what else do you want to say? Hurry up and say it. If you don't say it now, you won't have another chance. Tianling sneered, and his eyes turned cold. He would definitely not let Yang Zhongxiu leave alive. Yang Zhongxiu's teeth were chattering, and he couldn't even speak. Suddenly, he thought of something, and his eyes flickered. He said anxiously, I discovered a big secret. As long as you don't kill me, I'll tell you this secret. Nietion laughed and said cold, Tell me. Origin Earthstone. Yang Zhongxiu swallowed his saliva, and his eyes flickered. He said, There's a big secret hidden within the Origin Earthstone. If you want to know, you have to promise not to kill me first. Speak. Nietion's eyes darkened, and he released his killing intent, enveloping Yang Zhongxiu. I'll speak. Yang Zhongxiu became honest this time. His small eyes rolled around, and he said, I've been in the sacred Congress Pill Hall for tens of thousands of years. While I'm free, I like to study ancient alchemy books. One day, I found a map in an ancient book. That map recorded the distribution of the Origin Earth veins in the 9 domains. Origin Earth veins. When Nietion heard these 4 words, he couldn't help but be stunned. This was because he had just heard Little Fat Cat mention about the Mother Earth Vitality Vein, and Little Fat Cat wanted to use the Mother Earth Vitality Stone and the ordinary Mother Earth Vitality Vein. Continue. At this moment, Fat Cat's figure directly appeared on Yetian's shoulder. Her sharp eyes flickered, and she spoke anxiously. When Yang Zhongxiu saw a Fat Cat suddenly appearing on Yetian's shoulder, he couldn't help but be stunned. However, he didn't pay much attention to it. After thinking for a while, he continued, "The map I obtained is dead, and I need Origin Earthstones to activate it. But because my position in the Sacred Congress isn't high enough, I can't obtain perfect Origin Earthstones. I can only collect used Origin Earthstones. Unfortunately, those Origin Earthstones don't have enough Origin Earth Chi to activate the map." Speaking until here, Yang Zhongxiu had a helpless expression. Yet Tian chuckled and said, "So, you want to keep the 3 Origin Earthstones as the reward for the leader of the Lesser Gods, right?" "Yes." Yang Zhongxiu nodded with an embarrassed expression. He only requested to come to the God Husbandry domain to deliver the reward to the God Husbandry domain. Originally, he wanted to keep the Origin Earthstones for himself, but he didn't expect to meet Yetian. Yang Zhongxiu was only an outer elder of the Sacred Congress, and the Origin Earthstone was an extremely precious item. Other than the core elders of the Pill Hall, even the inner elders couldn't obtain it. For so many years, he could only obtain some used Origin Earthstones from the core elders, so he couldn't activate the distribution map of the Origin Earth veins. The Origin Earth veins were mineral veins formed by the Origin Earthstones. If he could find one, it would be a huge fortune that would shock the 9 great realms. Yang Zhongxiu had been careful for so many years and kept the geographical vein map a secret. He hoped that he could activate the geographical vein map one day and obtain the Origin Earth vein. Unfortunately, God disposes. He had just obtained the Origin Earthstone, and before he could even warm up to it, he met Yetian. "Old man, hurry up and take out the geographical vein map." At this moment, Fat Cat's gaze became extremely passionate. He chuckled, and his gaze was extremely greedy. Yang Zhongxiu was stunned and said in a deep voice, "I'll take out the geographical vein map. You can't kill me. Cut the crap. Take it out." Fat Cat couldn't be bothered with him. He let out a weird cry, and his voice became extremely sharp. Yang Zhongxiu swallowed his saliva. Only now did he know that Fat Cat was a powerful character. After dilly-dallying for a long time, he finally took out the geographical vein map. It was a round piece of stone. It wasn't very big and was about a meter long. Many strange runes were carved on it, and one could vaguely see that it was a map. Chapter 1546. It's just a map? Is there a need to be so excited? Yetian couldn't help but frown when he saw the Fat Cat's almost deranged reaction and mumbled, "Little kid, what do you know? This map isn't simple. Whether or not this deity can guide you to complete your goal depends on it." The Fat Cat chuckled and raised his paw. The stone map floated in front of him, and an ancient aura was released. Yetian's gaze froze slightly. He didn't expect this map to be so mysterious. Yang Zhongxiu was also stunned at the side and thought doubtfully, "Could it be that I've underestimated the value of the geographical meridian distribution map? Geographical meridian distribution map. I didn't expect you to fall into this deity's hands." The Fat Cat looked at the geographical meridian distribution map in front of him and chuckled. His 2 big eyes looked a little wretched. Yetian couldn't help but twitch his mouth and said, "Fat, what's the use of this map?" Yetian's consciousness was strong, and he could feel the strong rune aura from the geographical meridian distribution map. Unfortunately, he didn't recognize those runes at all and didn't know what they represented. The Fat Cat chuckled and ignored Yetian. After a long time, he calmed down and looked at Yang Zhongxiu with his sly eyes. He smiled meaningfully and said, "Old fellow, you've already tried to activate the geographical meridian distribution map, right? How did you know?" Yang Zhongxiu was stunned and cried out in surprise. The moment he got the Mother Earth Element Stone, he tried to activate the geographical meridian distribution map, but failed. Yang Zhongxiu had studied the geographical meridian distribution map for tens of thousands of years and found the method to activate the geographical meridian distribution map in an ancient book. Unfortunately, he tried to activate the map according to that method, but failed. "How did you activate it?" The Fat Cat wasn't anxious and chuckled. Yang Zhongxiu was stunned for a moment. Only now did he know that the fat cat was unusual. He didn't dare to hide anything and immediately told him his method. In the end, he said with a face full of doubt, I followed the Mother Earth element formations arrangement, but I couldn't activate the geographical meridian distribution map. How strange. Mother Earth element formation. The fat cat's sapphire eyes flickered and said, I didn't expect you to know so many things. It seems that it's better to keep your life. You're not going to kill me? Yang Zhongxiu was stunned for a moment before he reacted and couldn't help but cry out in alarm. I won't kill them for now. The fat cat smiled strangely. She then moved and carefully placed the map on the ground. She then went to Nietian's shoulder and said, Nietian, drip a drop of blood on the map. Dripping blood. Nietian was stunned for a moment, then smiled and said, dripping blood to recognize me as its master? He knew that some divine artifacts and sacred artifacts could be bound by blood if they didn't have a master. You're thinking too much. The fat cat rolled her eyes at Nietian and said, let me borrow your god-fiend blood. Nietian was stunned and didn't say anything. He took a step forward and forced out a drop of blood from his fingertip, dripping it on the center of the map. When the god-fiend blood landed, it was directly absorbed by the map, instantly vanishing without a trace. Nietian frowned and asked curiously, this map can absorb human blood? At this moment, the fat cat stared at the map with a burning gaze, as if waiting for something to happen. Unfortunately, there was no movement on the map. Nothing happened at all. How is this possible? The fat cat was puzzled and said, the life force of the god-fiend blood is stronger than that of the meridian of 3 lives. Why is there no reaction from the map? Fat, is there a problem? Nietian asked with a frown. Drip another drop of blood. The fat cat's expression was unprecedentedly serious, as she said in a deep voice. Nietian didn't ask anything and dripped another drop of blood. However, it was still absorbed by the map and nothing happened. Again, the fat cat almost became irritated and growled. My judgment of the map can't be wrong. The strong life force of the god-fiend blood can definitely activate the map. Nietian had a helpless expression and didn't care about a few drops of blood. When he dripped the 9th drop of blood, an unusual scene finally appeared. The 9th drop of blood wasn't absorbed by the map. Instead, it slowly flowed on the map. It's about to succeed. Seeing this, the fat cat cried out in excitement. After a short while, the originally dim map suddenly lit up. It flickered with a strange light, and the runes on it began to slowly surge. The map had actually been activated. Seeing this, Yang Zhongxiu was stunned, and his face was full of disbelief. He couldn't activate the map even with the Mother Earth Stone, but the fat cat activated the map with a few drops of Nietian's blood. This was too strange. This is considered as activating the map? Nietian was astonished. Although he could sense the aura of life from the map, he still couldn't understand anything. The fat cat smiled proudly and said, I'm really a genius. I can even think of using the god-fiend blood to activate the map. I'm really too smart. Nietian was speechless. He really wanted to know what shocking information was contained in the map that made the fat cat so excited. My lord. At this moment, Yang Zhongxiu reacted and couldn't hold it in anymore. He asked, the ancient records say that the map must be activated by the Earth Vein Formation. What happened just now? The fat cat rolled its eyes at him and said with disdain, the Earth Vein Formation activates the map by using the Mother Earth Stone's elemental energy, which is actually a strong life force. In terms of life force, the Mother Earth Stone is too far away from the god-fiend blood. To activate the map, it required a strong life force. The god-fiend blood contained an incomparably strong life force. It was very normal for it to be able to activate the map. Old man, do you think the map is so simple? The fat cat looked at Yang Zhongxiu cold and said, the map is in your hands. It's a waste of resources. Even if you can activate the map, you won't be able to see anything. This is because the words on the map are in the ancient Ming language. The number of people who know the ancient Ming language can be counted on one hand. Ancient Ming language? Nietian was stunned. He immediately thought of a race, the ancient Ming race. Ancient Ming language was obviously the language of the ancient Ming race. I remember now. At this moment, Nie Tian suddenly let out a weird cry. His face was filled with surprise. What did you remember? The fat cat was stunned. If Nie Tian knew the ancient Ming language, then he would really look at Nie Tian in a different light. Of course, Nie Tian didn't know the ancient Ming language, but he had seen it before. The Three Lives Reincarnation Plate. Nie Tian calmed down a little and murmured, I've seen the ancient Ming language on the Three Lives Reincarnation Plate before. No wonder Nie Tian vaguely felt that the runes on the map were somewhat familiar. It turned out that those runes were the same as the runes on the Three Lives Samsara disc. The Three Lives Reincarnation Plate. When the fat cat heard this name, he couldn't help but let out a weird cry. He asked in astonishment, You've seen the Three Lives Reincarnation Plate before? Yes. Nie Tian nodded his head heavily and told the fat cat about how he saw the Three Lives Reincarnation Plate. Chapter 1547. Oh no, what's wrong? Nie Tian saw that little fat cat was panicking, and he couldn't help but frown in confusion. Although the fat cat was unreliable at times, he had never panicked before. Anything that could make him panic was definitely something serious. The activation of the triple lifetime samsara disc means that the triple lifetime samsara formation has been activated. This also means that the ruler of the ancient Ming, the emperor of the underworld, is about to be resurrected. The fat cat's eyes flickered as he spoke with a solemn expression. The emperor of the underworld is resurrecting? Nie Tian was taken aback. His frown deepened as he asked in confusion, Who is the emperor of the underworld? Is he very scary? He had heard of the name Emperor of the Underworld more than once. The mystic dragon demon Saint Enai Jiaming, the Sacred Union leader Nine Gods Calamity, the Wind and Cloud Alliance leader Nie Dao, and the Xingtian Alliance leader Jiang Lai. These powerful characters would either be secretive or terrified when they heard the name. Most importantly, the Emperor of the Underworld had an inexplicable connection with Cher. Under such circumstances, Nie Tian was even more interested in the Emperor of the Underworld. Nie Tian, do you know the two people who took Miss Cher away, the Heaven and Earth leaders? The fat cat frowned and asked in a deep voice. I know, they are from the ancient Ming race. Nie Tian nodded with a serious expression. Yes. The fat cat shook his head with a wry smile and said, It seems that the purpose of the inescapable net was to resurrect the Emperor of the Underworld. Sigh. It's all because of the sins I committed back then. You? Nie Tian was taken aback and speechless. Little Fat Cat was merely the spirit of the Glazed Demon Pagoda and a clone. Moreover, it was only the 9th clone. Before it left the Glazed Demon Pagoda, what could it do? Sigh. The fat cat heaved another long sigh and said, Tens of thousands of years ago, Tian Kuei entered the 9th floor of the Glazed Pagoda and had a conversation with me. It was me who told him that he was from the ancient Ming race. Otherwise, Tian Kuei would never have known his true identity for the rest of his life. If he didn't know who he was, he wouldn't have set up the inescapable trap, and he wouldn't have tried so hard to revive the Emperor of the Underworld. This is truly the cycle of karma and reincarnation. It circulates without end, and the will of the heavens exists in the unseen world. I see. Nie Tian was speechless. He knew that Tian Kuei had seen Fat Cat before, but he did not expect such a thing to happen. However, this matter could no longer be stopped. The inescapable net had existed for hundreds of thousands of years, and even a force like the Holy Parliament didn't dare to touch it. At this moment, there was no need to even think about Nie Tian. Fat, is the Emperor of the Underworld very powerful? Why is everyone so afraid of him? After the fat cat calmed down, Nie Tian frowned and asked, Of course he is. The fat cat let out a strange cry and said, The Netherworld Emperor is the Emperor of the ancient Ming race. He is known as the Heaven-Punishing Demon. Back then, the 9 creators had to join forces to kill him. However, they were unable to destroy his demonic heart and could only imprison it. As long as the demonic heart was still alive, the Underworld Emperor would not die. One day, he will come back to life. That's terrifying. Nie Tian was stunned. Yi Qinghai had once mentioned the 9 creators to him. They were rumored to have created this world. The 9 of them had to join forces to defeat the Emperor of the Underworld, but they were unable to kill him completely. The Emperor of the Underworld's power was evident. If the Emperor of the Underworld were to come back to life, wouldn't he be able to destroy all realms with a wave of his hand? Yet Tian was stunned and cried out. Of course. The fat cat let out a strange cry and nodded solemnly. If the Emperor of the Underworld were to come back to life, then it would truly be the end of the world. Even an expert like Hua Jioshin would be nothing in front of the Emperor of the Underworld. Nie Tian was stunned and couldn't speak for a moment. Nie Tian, don't think too much. The fat cat shook her head with a smile and said, Tian Chief's plan to resurrect the Emperor of the Underworld has been going on for hundreds of thousands of years. Even if the 3 lives reincarnation formation is activated, the Emperor of the Underworld won't be able to come back to life overnight. Right now, the most important thing for you is to increase your strength. Fat, can you tell me the relationship between Cher and the Emperor of the Underworld? Tian calmed down and suddenly asked, Is there any use in knowing this now? The fat cat frowned slightly. Even if it's useless, I still want to know. Tian's expression was solemn, but his eyes were resolute. He said, Since Cher possesses the bloodline of the Emperor of the Underworld, she should be a descendant of the Emperor of the Underworld, right? You can say that. The fat cat saw that Nie Tian was unusually determined. After a moment of hesitation, she said, I can only tell you that the relationship between Cher and the Emperor of the Underworld is similar to the relationship between this noble one and Lord Mainbody. Nie Tian's eyes suddenly trembled. He said solemnly, Are you saying that Cher is a clone of the Emperor of the Underworld? She's not a clone. She's more complicated than a clone, and far more powerful. The fat cat frowned and said, The relationship between Cher and the Emperor of the Underworld is very complicated. Even if I explain it to you, you won't be able to understand it. You can temporarily treat Cher as a clone of the Emperor of the Underworld. And yet Tian let out a long breath, and his expression gradually calmed down. Strength, it was still strength. At this moment, he felt that the responsibility on his shoulders was very heavy. In the future, he would not only have to face the 9 gods of calamity, but also the Emperor of the Underworld, who is currently in the process of resurrection. The Emperor of the Underworld was not someone that the 9 gods of calamity could compare to. It was very likely that this person was a true Saint Realm expert. Nie Tian, don't think too much. Your talent and willpower are both top-notch. Among all the martial artists this noble one has met, no one can compare to you. As long as your strength increases to the highest peak, you might be able to fight against the Emperor of the Underworld. The fat cat saw through Nie Tian's thoughts and chuckled. It was actually very optimistic. Nie Tian nodded. It was useless for him to think too much at the moment. It would only add to his worries. Fat, what are we going to do next? Nie Tian asked as he looked at the fat cat. He had completely calmed down. The geographical vein map has already been activated. Of course, we have to try and see if it's useful. The fat cat chuckled and said, Now, let's see if there's a Mother Earth vital vein in the God Husbandry domain. Lord, are you going to use the geographical vein map? Yang Zhongqiu's eyes lit up when he heard the fat cat's words. Old man, look carefully. This is how the geographical vein map is used. The fat cat reprimanded him angrily. Then he said to Nie Tian, take out your Mother Earth vital stone and those waste stones. Nie Tian agreed and took out the Mother Earth vital stone and a pile of used raw stones. The fat cat's body trembled slightly. Waves of colored glaze, qi were released from his body and condensed into a strange pattern in the air. It looked like a formation. Then he raised his 2 paws, and the Mother Earth vital stone floated up and landed in the center of the pattern. Then, other waste stones appeared in other parts of the pattern. So powerful. Nie Tian frowned. He could feel a strong aura of a formation appearing. His eyes couldn't help but tremble a little. The fat cat was indeed very powerful. His attainments and formations were simply terrifying. At this moment, the formation started to revolve. A ray of light slowly condensed in the center of the formation and flowed into the geographical vein map. The geographical vein map sensed it and shone brightly. Streams of rune power gushed out and surged into space. Soon, a vast map of light and shadow was formed, covering the space within a radius of tens of meters. Chapter 1548. Yang Zhongqiu noticed that the floating map around him was the map of God shepherding territory and couldn't help but scream. "Old man, you're not that stupid after all." Fat Cat chuckled. Then his eyes turned sharp. He looked at the map in front of him and observed it carefully. Nie Tian and the rest were stunned. Fat Cat's methods were simply heaven-defying. Using a piece of Mother Earth origin stone and a pile of waste to condense a map of the entire God shepherding territory was truly terrifying. Nie Tian, we're searching the entire God shepherding territory now. If I didn't have the geographical meridian map, I could only search the area within 1,000 miles at most. With the geographical meridian map, I can search the entire territory in one go. Little Fat Cat smiled complacently, its eyes roaming nonstop as it tried its best to search for the Mother Earth vital vein. Nie Tian looked at everything around him. Those floating runes were the ancient Ming language. He couldn't understand them at all. At this moment, no one dared to speak loudly for fear of disturbing Fat Cat. "I can't be so unlucky." After a while, Fat Cat sighed and said angrily, "God's shepherding territory is so big, but there isn't a single Mother Earth origin vein." Fat Cat cursed while still searching. Unfortunately, he really couldn't find anything. After a while, the map gradually weakened and finally disappeared. "Fat, what's going on?" Nie Tian asked in a daze as he saw the map disappear. The map become dimmer and the aura of the formation become weaker. The Mother Earth origin energy in the Mother Earth origin stone was exhausted and couldn't support the opening of the map. Of course, the map closed. Fat Cat sighed helplessly. Sigh. God's shepherding territory doesn't have a Mother Earth origin vein. Nie Tian was speechless. So a piece of Mother Earth origin stone could only support it for so long. So what do we do now? Nie Tian went blank for a moment before a helpless expression appeared on his face. Nie Tian, I still have a piece of Mother Earth origin stone. At this moment, Chen Wuqing walked over and handed the Mother Earth origin stone to Nie Tian. Thank you. Nie Tian didn't stand on ceremony and kept the origin Earth stone. He asked, Chen Wuqing, why are you here? Shouldn't you have returned to the realm of flame heaven? Nie Tian, to be honest, I'm here to look for you. Chen Wuqing nodded solemnly. Looking for me? Nie Tian was stunned for a moment, then smiled and said, How did you find this place? He was indeed curious as to how Chen Wuqing could find his way here. The latter was not a warrior with a strong perception. There's a trace of my mother's aura in your body. My godhead is very sensitive to this aura. That's why I can find you. Chen Wuqing did not hide anything and said directly. Nie Tian was stunned for a moment. He didn't expect it to be like this. Back in the colored glazed demon pagoda, Nie Tian's fiend Ether had entered space-time. Later on, when he killed Chen Wuqing, he triggered the innate guardian in the latter's body and absorbed all the power of the innate guardian. Therefore, there was a trace of Chen Wuqing's mother's aura in his body. Chen Wuqing relied on this trace of aura to find Nie Tian. Nie Tian, don't worry. This aura is weakening and will disappear soon. Chen Wuqing explained with a faint smile. Why are you looking for me? Nie Tian also smiled and asked. I want to train with you. Chen Wuqing didn't pretend and said directly, Are you willing? Nie Tian was stunned for a moment, then nodded and said, Of course. Chen Wuqing had already taken out the origin Earth Stone. If he didn't bring Chen Wuqing along, it wouldn't be right. Chen Wuqing wasn't weak. It wasn't bad to have someone like him by his side. Fat, what should we do next? Nie Tian looked at Fat Cat and asked with a frown. Other than the God shepherding territory, there are 8 other territories. Let's not go to the upper 3 realms. Pick one of the remaining 5 territories. We still have 1 origin Earth Stone with us, so we only have 1 chance. We can only try our luck. Fat Cat sighed softly. He was depressed that he couldn't find the Mother Earth vital vein in the God shepherding territory. Then let's go back to the god awakening territory. Nietian thought for a moment and nodded. He originally wanted to go back to the god awakening territory. All right, Fat Cat forced a smile and said, I reckon that the possibility of finding the Mother Earth vital vein in the lower three realms is higher. Nietian nodded and prepared to leave the god shepherding territory immediately. He didn't kill Yang Zhongxiao. Instead, he let the latter follow them to the spiritual territory. Yang Zhongxiao admired Fat Cat from the bottom of his heart. He couldn't ask for more than anything to be able to follow beside Nietian. Immediately, Nietian opened the realm divine boat, and everyone entered it. They set off immediately. In just a few minutes, Nietian and the others returned from the god shepherding territory to the god awakening territory. The land of the Crimson Moon. Nietian put away the realm divine boat and looked down. He immediately recognized that they had arrived at the land of the Crimson Moon. Below them was the Crimson Moon mountain range. When they returned to the god awakening territory again, Nietian forced a smile on his face. This was the first territory he knew, and it felt like his home. Although he had only left the god awakening territory for less than 10 days, too many things had happened. Returning to the god awakening territory felt like a lifetime had passed. When he went to the god awakening territory, Mo Rushi and Cher were still by his side. Now that he returned to the god awakening territory, they were no longer there. If Nietian was given another chance, would he still bring Mo Rushi and Cher to the god awakening territory? He didn't know what he would choose, but he knew that some things couldn't be avoided. Although Mo Rushi and Cher weren't by his side, they were at least safe. That was enough. Big brother Nietian, let's go down. ED was very excited when they returned to the god awakening territory. Nietian agreed, and everyone descended. After a while, Nietian and the others arrived at a valley in the Crimson Moon mountain range. He spread out his divine senses and was slightly relieved when he confirmed that there was no one around. Nietian, are you sure you want to use the Mother Earth Essence Stone in the god awakening territory? Fat Cat appeared and looked at Nietian. They only had one Mother Earth Essence Stone now. The rest were useless. If they couldn't find the Mother Earth Essence vein in the god awakening territory, they would be in trouble. Yes. Nietian nodded heavily and smiled bitterly. The Realm Divine boat has been used. It's impossible to go to other territories now. Let's go to the god awakening territory. I don't believe my luck is so bad. All right. Fat Cat smiled and took out the geographical meridian map. Everything went according to plan. After a while, a map of light and shadow appeared in the valley. The whole valley was filled with it. Nietian's heart was beating so fast that he could hear it clearly. He hoped that he could successfully find the Mother Earth Essence vein this time. Fat Cat stared at the map and sensed it bit by bit. At a certain moment, Fat Cat let out a strange cry of excitement. Found it. Before he finished his sentence, Fat Cat released a ball of glazed air from his body. He locked onto a location and shouted, "It's here." Nietian's gaze trembled and became extremely passionate. His luck was really good. He actually found the legendary Mother Earth Essence vein. Chapter 1549. Inside the valley, Nietian frowned and his face darkened when he sensed that someone had appeared outside. Something's wrong. This is... Almost at the same time, Fat Cat seemed to have discovered something and suddenly let out a strange cry. His already large eyes suddenly widened, as if he had discovered something very terrifying. Fat, what's wrong? Nietian frowned when he saw Fat Cat's reaction and his eyes flickered. 9 Dragons Geographical Vein. 9 Dragons Geographical Vein. This is the legendary 9 Dragons Geographical Vein. The little Fat Cat did not hear Nietian's words at all. Its eyes trembled violently, and it screamed shrilly. Its voice became shrill, as if it was a cat that had gone mad. Nietian was stunned. He didn't know what little Fat Cat had discovered to make it so excited. Its reaction was almost crazy. Fat Cat was a person who had seen the world. Ordinary things wouldn't be able to enter his eyes. For him to be so excited at this moment, he must have discovered something very terrifying. Who is it? However, right at this time, several figures suddenly appeared at the entrance of the valley. They shouted loudly and were surging with killing intent. Nyetian, stop them. Don't let anyone enter the valley. Fat Cat's face darkened, and he let out a strange cry. Nyetian didn't ask too much. His figure moved and appeared at the entrance of the valley, blocking the way. At this moment, there were more than a dozen gray-robed cultivators outside the valley. From their attire, they should be the Red Moon Divine Palace's guards. They seemed to be patrolling and accidentally discovered Nyetian and the others. You are Nyetian. When the leader saw Nyetian's appearance, he couldn't help but be stunned. Then he smiled sinisterly and said, Nyetian, since you've returned to the Crimson Moon Divine Palace, follow me back to see the Palace Master. You are the guard commander of the Red Moon Divine Palace. Wang Lin? Nyetian was stunned for a moment before he recalled that he had seen the person in front of him before. He was one of the 4 guard commanders of the Crimson Moon Divine Palace. Nyetian, since you know me, come with me. The Palace Lord is looking for you. Wang Lin faintly smiled as he took a step forward. His entire body's aura was restrained and tensed up, ready to attack at any moment. Wang Lin was one of Qi Yefeng's trusted aides. Qi Yefeng had been waiting for Nyetian to return. Qi Yefeng had already issued an order to the guards and elders of the Crimson Moon Divine Palace. As long as they saw Nyetian, they must bring him back, dead or alive. Qi Yefeng wanted the Mother Earth primordial stone so badly that he had almost gone crazy. He even had the intention to kill Nyetian. Qi Yefeng is looking for me? Nyetian frowned slightly, and his eyes became very strange. He knew that Qi Yefeng wanted the Mother Earth primordial stone. He even had doubts about Qi Yefeng's identity. He felt that Qi Yefeng definitely had another identity besides being the Red Moon Palace Lord. Nyetian, you have helped the Crimson Moon Divine Palace obtain the first place of the Lower God Chief and stabilize the position of the Crimson Moon Divine Palace. The Palace Lord is waiting for you to return from the God Husbandry domain. He will hold a celebration banquet for you. Wang Lin faintly smiled, but his eyes were filled with malice. Nyetian frowned slightly. He took a step forward and said cold, There's no need for a celebration banquet. I am just passing by the Crimson Moon Divine Palace and will leave immediately. Leave? Wang Lin laughed. He sensed Nyetian's vigilance and decided not to hide anything. He said cold, Do you think that's possible? With a sneer, Wang Lin released his aura, which turned into rolling waves that pressed towards Nyetian, forcing him to take a few steps back. Boom! The invisible waves bombarded the map, formed by the geographical meridian diagram. It had a certain impact on the runes, and the entire map became messy as if it was about to collapse. The Fat Cat was concentrating on observing something. When the map was messed up, he couldn't help but shout, Nyetian, stop him. Don't let anyone near the valley. Nyetian furrowed his brows. His body trembled, and a ball of white light burst out of his body, enveloping the entire valley. With the protection of the extreme wind firmament battle armor, the map immediately stabilized. Wang Lin looked at the figures in the valley, and then at the strange map. He couldn't help but ask, What are you doing? Although Wang Lin wasn't a divine array master, and his perception wasn't strong, he could still sense an extremely strong array aura. It's none of your business. If you take another step forward, you will die. Nyetian let out a bellow as his rage transformed into a raging will to fight. Sword intent surged out of him, making him look like a sword of slaughter. Humph! Seeing that Nyetian's aura wasn't weak, Wang Lin sneered and said, You think you can kill me? Although Wang Lin wasn't a top-notch expert in the Red Lunar Divine Palace, he possessed early-stage high god strength. He didn't put Nyetian in his eyes at all. Nyetian, since you won't go back with me, I won't stand on ceremony, Wang Lin smiled coldly. Wang Lin coldly smiled as a cold, killing intent appeared in his eyes. Before he finished his sentence, he took a step forward and violently punched out. Rumble. Raging power surged out as an enormous fist shadow rumbled towards Nyetian. Nyetian creased his brows. He couldn't retreat from his punch. He could only take it head-on. Behind him was the valley, and Fat Cat was still in the valley. Moreover, The geographical meridian diagram was still active. It must not be destroyed. Divine Star Soul armor. Nietion roared. His body trembled, and a pair of Star Soul wings appeared on his back. An armor of Star Soul appeared around his body. The shield of Star Soul formed a shield of light and shadow that enveloped the valley. At the same time, the flame of Star Soul surged on the tip of the sky, severing sword. A mighty sword shadow surged out like a dragon. Boom! A loud noise was heard. Terrifying air waves erupted in midair. An endless amount of violent energy wreaked havoc in the space. Nietion's body paused for a moment before he was sent flying. He struggled to flap his Star Soul wings to stabilize his body. A trace of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. He was only an early-stage mid-god. It was a little difficult for him to fight against an early-stage high god. But thanks to the protection of the armor of Star Soul, Nietion didn't sustain any serious injuries. The valley was also protected by the shield of Star Soul and the firmament wind armor. How is this possible? Wang Lin's eyes trembled when he repelled Nietion with a punch. His eyes were filled with disbelief. He had never imagined that Nietion would be able to withstand his punch so easily. This was simply impossible. One must know that there was an entire realm of difference between the two of them. Nietion, hang in there. I will be fine very soon. At this moment, the voice of Fat Cat sounded. She sounded somewhat excited. Nietion turned around to look at the valley. The scene that greeted his eyes made him tremble. On the map of light and shadow, there were many strange light spots that lit up. The power of the runes surged crazily, and all the light spots connected together, faintly forming a dragon-shaped image. It was as if a giant dragon was lurking underground, waiting for the moment to break out of the abyss. Is this the Nine Dragons' Earth Vein that Fat Cat mentioned? Nietion frowned. He didn't know what the Nine Dragons' Earth Vein was, but it must be something extraordinary for Fat Cat to be so excited. Chapter 1550. Stop them. Seeing that the people outside wanted to rush into the valley, little Fat Cat let out a strange cry, its throat almost going numb. Those people were at least mid-god experts. If they were to rush into the valley, the map would be destroyed in an instant. Fat Cat had not sensed the complete Nine Dragons geographical vein map. Therefore, he must not let anyone enter the valley. Get back! Nietion's face darkened. He roared and activated the forbidden space of Astral River. An invisible boundary spread out and enveloped Wang Lin and the others. Boom! Nietion leaped into the air and stabbed out with his sword. As the sword descended, a mid-stage mid-god was instantly killed. However, at the same time, the other people's attacks arrived. One after another, violent attacks rained down on Nietion, forcing him to retreat. Even if he activated the forbidden space of Astral River, it would still be too much for him to face more than a dozen mid-gods at the same time. In particular, there was Wang Lin, who was an early-stage high god. Nietion was even more constrained. Nietion, let me help you. At this moment, Chun Wuching appeared with a black spear in his hand. He thrust the spear forward, and the spear's shadow was like a dragon. It whizzed out and forced a warrior to retreat. This was the first time Nietion saw Chun Wuching use a weapon. It seemed that Chun Wuching was a spear spirit warrior. However, Chun Wuching was currently in Nietion's forbidden space of Astral River. His strength was suppressed to a certain extent, and the power of the dark dust spear could not be fully exerted. All right, let's fight side by side. Nietion looked at Chun Wuching. Immediately, a stream of starlight gushed out from his body and enveloped Chun Wuching, isolating him from the forbidden space of Astral River. This way, he would no longer be suppressed by the forbidden space of Astral River. All right, Chun Wuching nodded. He was very excited to be able to fight side by side with Nietion. His blood was boiling. You two small fries want to stop this commander? Seeing this, Wang Lin sneered. His entire body's aura rose, and waves of energy surged in the air. With a sudden movement, it rushed towards Nietion and Chun Wuching like a tsunami. Two ghosts of heaven and earth. Upon seeing this, Nyetian let out a low roar, but he didn't retreat. Instead, the astral wings on his back trembled as his body transformed into a sword of slaughter, gushing forth. Boom! As he swung his sword, two strange snakes appeared. They were like two swords that could split the sky. They tore apart Wang Lin's violent chi wave attack. Suddenly, an ear-piercing sound came from the void. It was extremely terrifying. Wang Lin felt a sharp aura coming at him and couldn't help but frown. He wanted to make another move, but it was too late. He could only retreat 1,000 meters away, dodging the attack of the snake. Brat, your strength is so strange. Wang Lin steadied himself. His face was green and red. He didn't expect Nyetian to be this strong. He was able to force him back in a direct confrontation. The gap between the two of them was an entire realm. This was too unbelievable. Wang Lin didn't know that he was already inside Nyetian's forbidden astral space boundary. The strangest part is yet to come. The corner of Nyetian's mouth curved into a cold smile. He turned around and glanced at Chun Wuqing, who was fighting with the others. Chun Wuqing was a genius. Although he only had the strength of an early-stage mid-god, his true battle strength was at the mid-stage or even late-stage mid-god realm. In addition to the suppression of the forbidden astral space boundary, he was more than enough to hold them back. Nyetian's eyes suddenly sank. Killing intent surged in his heart. He didn't know when Fat Cat would be able to sense the complete 9 dragons' earth vein. Therefore, he absolutely couldn't let Wang Lin and the others leave alive. Humph! Wang Lin could feel the killing intent from Nyetian. He sneered and said disdainfully, Nyetian, you've already reached your limit by forcing me to retreat. Don't tell me you still want to kill me? In his opinion, Nyetian had already reached his limit. However, he didn't use his ultimate move. Even though Nyetian had surprised him, it wasn't enough to make him feel fear. You will know after you try. Nyetian laughed coldly. Immediately after, he flapped his star soul wings and moved like a bolt of lightning, moving in extremely fast speed. Courting death, Wang Lin couldn't help but roar when he saw Nyetian rushing towards him. He raised his fists and bone scales grew on his arms. Bloodline power! Nyetian's eyes narrowed slightly when he saw this. He didn't expect Wang Lin to have bloodline power in his body. However, he didn't stop. Instead, he rushed towards Wang Lin with even greater speed. Sky-devouring blood. While in the air, the sword intent and blood chi around him burst out uncontrollably. In an instant, the sword intent under the stimulation of the blood chi burst out with dazzling sword light. Coupled with the enhancement brought by the forbidden astral space boundary, the power of the sword intent was released to the extreme. Boom! In the air, a blood-red sword shadow appeared. As if it wanted to split the sky, it directly pressed down on Wang Lin's head. At this moment, Wang Lin suddenly felt an enormous pressure. He couldn't help but be stunned. His movements slowed down a bit. However, he instantly reacted and punched out with both fists. Two violent fist shadows soared into the sky like two ferocious beasts. Boom! In the air, the fist shadows and the sword shadows collided with each other. A deafening explosion sounded in the air, and even the earth and sky trembled. At this moment, the others couldn't help but be stunned when they saw this scene. It was hard to imagine that an early-stage mid-god could actually explode with such terrifying power. Bang! Bang! The next moment, two muffled explosions sounded. The two fist shadows couldn't withstand the pressure of the sword shadows and directly collapsed. The sword shadows were like mountains and directly pressed down on Wang Lin. No! Wang Lin suddenly felt a real killing intent approaching him. He shouted in fear, but it was already too late. The next moment, the sword shadows fell. Wang Lin's body was directly submerged in the enormous sword essence. On the ground, there was a huge pit with a circumference of 1,000 meters. The surrounding rocks and grass all collapsed. Nyetian used the forbidden skill of the AO sword skill in the Star River Forbidden Space. Even an early-stage high god warrior couldn't resist it. Seeing this, The others all gasped and looked at Niet Tian in horror, as if they were looking at a monster. In everyone's eyes, Niet Tian was a monster, an abnormally abnormal monster. Seeing that Wang Lin was dead, Niet Tian stood in the air and let out a long breath. His face was as pale as a piece of paper. Boom! The next moment, an invisible wave spread out and the Star River Forbidden Space disappeared. The Star River Forbidden Space consumed a lot of the power of the stars. In addition, Niet Tian had used the Star Soul Divine Armament. The power of the stars could no longer maintain the Star River Forbidden Space. At this moment, Niet Tian had consumed a lot of the power of the stars and blood chi. His combat strength was at least halved. But when he turned around to look at the other Red Moon guards, their eyes were filled with great fear. They didn't have the slightest desire to resist. They didn't know that the Star River Forbidden Space had been activated and disappeared. They thought that Niet Tian's combat strength was so terrifying. Even Wang Lin, who had the strength of a high god, was killed. How could they be a match for Niet Tian? Niet Tian's figure moved and landed at the entrance of the valley. His eyes couldn't help but sink. He didn't know whether he should kill these people in front of him or not. 9 Dragons Earth Vein done. At this moment, Fat Cat's strange voice sounded in the valley. It sounded very happy. Niet Tian immediately turned around and looked at the valley. He saw countless light spots surging and faintly gathered into the image of 9 dragons. The 9 dragons were moving stealthily under the ground. Chapter 1551. This is the Earth Vein of the 9 dragons. Looking at the 9 shining dragons in the valley, Niet Tian's pupils couldn't help but tremble, and his eyes became slightly glazed. The 9 dragons were formed by the runes of the ancient Ming language. Although Niet Tian couldn't understand these runes, he could feel a terrifying momentum. It was as if this momentum was affecting the entire God's domain. Once it was destroyed, the entire God's domain would be destroyed. At the place where the 9 dragons converged, even more intense runes condensed together, forming a dazzling ball of light that rotated rapidly. Niet Tian's eyebrows furrowed. He didn't know what the ball of light represented. 9 dragons converge. Mother Earth appears. Could this be? At this moment, Fat Cat's strange voice rang out again. His voice was thin and trembling. Obviously, he was extremely surprised. Niet Tian was stunned again. He didn't know why Fat Cat was so surprised. Everyone else was also stunned, their faces blank. Although they couldn't understand what the map represented, that kind of force was something that everyone could clearly feel. Let's go. At this moment, one of the Scarlet Moon Guards reacted and exclaimed in shock. Immediately after, his figure dashed into the distance. When the others saw this, they all moved and left as well. Niet Tian frowned. He had a helpless look on his face. At this moment, even if he wanted to stop these people, he didn't have the strength. Without the Star River Forbidden Flight, he couldn't stop so many people at the same time. It was good that these people were scared away. At least, they wouldn't be a threat to Niet Tian and the others. In fact, Niet Tian wasn't in a good state. He had consumed a lot of the power of the stars and couldn't activate the Star River Forbidden Flight again. Without the Star River Forbidden Flight, it would be very difficult for him and Shun Wuqing to fight against more than a dozen mid-stage or late-stage mid-god experts. If these people were calm enough and fought with Niet Tian and Shun Wuqing to the death, the outcome was uncertain. Fat, are you okay? Niet Tian retracted his aura and flashed into the valley. Seeing that Fat Cat was still in a daze, he couldn't help but frown and ask. The Fat Cat's eyes were blurred, staring at the 9 dragons' pattern in a daze. Hearing Niet Tian's voice, the Fat Cat came back to its senses. It waved its paw and said, "I'm fine. The Chiyu guards have escaped. Let's leave quickly." Niet Tian frowned and prepared to leave immediately. After those guards escaped, it wouldn't be long before a large number of experts from the Crimson Moon Divine Palace would arrive. If Qi Yefeng was here, she would probably come personally. Although Niet Tian possessed early-stage mid-god strength, there was still a huge gap between him and an overgod like Qi Yefeng. There was no way he could contend against an overgod. "We can't leave yet." The Fat Cat's eyes darkened as it growled. Immediately after, A glass-like chi gushed out from its fat body, gushing into the Nine Dragons diagram, slowly imprinting the Nine Dragons diagram onto the geomancy diagram. It was impossible for the geomancy diagram to remain open all the time. Therefore, the fat cat had to move the Nine Dragons geographical vein into the geomancy diagram. Nietian immediately understood that this was similar to his holographic divine glyph inscription. Only by moving the Nine Dragons geographical vein into the geomancy diagram could the Nine Dragons geographical vein be considered as the real Nine Dragons geographical vein. What exactly is the Nine Dragons geographical vein? Why is the fat cat so interested in it? Murmured Nietian in his heart. He could only watch from the side, unable to help. The fat cat's movements were very fast, but moving the Nine Dragons geographical vein into the geomancy diagram was clearly not an easy task. After a short while, beads of sweat appeared on the fat cat's forehead and its face turned pale. The others could only watch from the side, anxiously, but could do nothing to help. After a long time, under the hard work of the fat cat, the Nine Dragons geographical vein was finally imprinted onto the geomancy diagram. Success! The fat cat was sweating profusely and his face was pale, but his eyes shone with a strange light. He was very happy. Nietian, keep the geomancy diagram well. The fat cat moved and returned to the origin fetus space. He was very weak now. Fat, what exactly is the Nine Dragons geographical vein? Nietian held the geomancy diagram in his palm and frowned, puzzled. The Nine Dragons geographical vein, is a good thing. As long as we find one of the geographical veins and absorb its energy, your strength will soar. The fat cat lay in the sea of demons and gods, smiling proudly. At this time, the split in his tail was even more obvious, as if he could grow a second tail very soon. Even before the awakening, the 3,000 demons and God's strength still contained a very strong life force. Fat, I saw a blazing white ball of light where the Nine Dragons converged. What is that ball of light? It seems to be more powerful than the Nine Dragons geographical vein. Nietian frowned and couldn't help but voice out the doubt in his heart. I'm not very sure what that ball of light is. When the fat cat heard Nietian ask about that ball of light, his face turned solemn, and he said solemnly, but I have a guess in my heart. That ball of light is very likely the legendary Mother Earth. Mother Earth. Almost as soon as the fat cat's voice fell, Sakura's exclamation rang out. His voice was very sharp, and it was obvious that he was very surprised. Mother Earth? Nietian was stunned. He didn't know what Mother Earth was, but something that could make Fat Cat and Sakura so surprised was definitely not ordinary. Mother Earth is closely related to the legendary veins of the Earth. It's a kind of source energy. If your devil vitality can fuse with Mother Earth, your strength will rise to the supreme realm soon. Fat Cat smiled faintly and said solemnly, Origin power. Nietian went blank for a moment, taken aback. No wonder the Fat Cat and Sakura were so shocked. So Mother Earth was the legendary source energy. Nietian, let's leave quickly. It's no longer safe here. Fat Cat saw Nietian stunned and couldn't help but remind him. All right. Nietian nodded solemnly. Now wasn't the time to discuss in detail. They had to leave immediately. If the people from Red Moon Divine Palace came, it would be troublesome. Let's go. Nietian shouted and was the first to rush out of the valley. Everyone rushed out of the valley and shuttled through the forest agilely. Nietian didn't dare to fly in the sky as it would be too big of a target. After a moment, everyone came to the periphery of Red Moon Mountain Range and was about to leave. But at this moment, a deafening roar came from the sky. Nietian, since you have returned to Red Moon Divine Palace, then stay. Boom! As the sound of thunder landed, a violent air wave came crashing down from the sky like a collapsing mountain, blocking Nietian and the rest. Nietian was forced to stop, and his face darkened. He raised his head to look at the sky and saw a tyrannical figure standing in the sky, releasing a strong killing aura. Chapter 1552. On the outskirts of the Scarlet Lunar Mountain Range, Nietian couldn't help but frown as he looked at the man in the sky. The newcomer was the commander of the Crimson Lunar Divine Palace. He was even stronger than Wang Lin, a mid-stage high god. Such strength was enough to make him a top-notch expert in the God Awakening territory. After all, the God Awakening territory was a low-level domain. Anyone with the strength of an overgod was already a top-notch expert. Tian, I am Zhao Lei. You have already returned to the Crimson Lunar Divine Palace. Why are you in such a hurry to leave? Zhao Lei said in a thunderous voice. As soon as he finished speaking, thunder rumbled behind him, releasing a powerful threat. Commander Zhao. Tian smiled and stepped forward. I have matters to attend to. I can't stay for long. Can't stay? Zhao Lei smiled coldly. Then, his face darkened and he said, What if I insist that you stay? As he spoke, the threat in Zhao Lei's tone was extremely strong. Can you stop me? Tian's eyes narrowed. He took a step forward and soared into the sky. His aura erupted. He didn't want to get entangled with Zhao Lei. If the others from the Crimson Lunar Divine Palace arrived, the situation would be even worse. However, Tian wasn't in his best condition. The battle with Wang Lin had consumed too much of his power of the stars. He couldn't use the starry sky restriction. If Tian was in his best condition, he might be able to fight Zhao Lei with the starry sky restriction. But now, it was too much for him. Tian, you are too arrogant, Zhao Lei frowned. His eyes flashed with murderous intent. He knew that Tian killed Wang Lin, but he felt that it must have been an accident. Wang Lin was careless and fell into Tian's trap. Based on his understanding of the martial way, it was impossible for an early-stage mid-god to kill a high-god martial artist. Moreover, Zhao Lei believed that his strength was far above Wang Lin's, so he didn't take Tian seriously. Tian, I will give you one last chance. Come back with me obediently. Otherwise, don't blame me for being merciless, Zhao Lei said coldly. Dream on, Tianling roared. Astral soul wings appeared behind his back as he directly pierced out with the heaven slash of the sword of absolute slash. It was a simple sword strike, yet it was accompanied by a resolute killing intent. Facing an expert like Zhao Lei, Tian could only take the initiative and attack with all his might. If he took the initiative, he might have a chance. You don't know how to appreciate favors. When Zhao Lei saw that Tian had actually taken the initiative to attack, he couldn't help but become enraged. With a deep roar, he slammed his palm down. Suddenly, tens of thousands of lightning bolts appeared in the sky, connecting into a net of lightning that crazily pressed down on Tian. Boom! An explosive sound rang out as the sword shadow was directly torn apart by the lightning net. Sword intent gushed out in all directions as the boundless power of lightning pressed down ferociously, causing even the heavens and earth to tremble. Tian's face darkened, and the wings on his back vibrated. Although his reaction was extremely fast, he was still struck by the lightning net. His body trembled, and he was blasted flying, leaving behind a trail of blood in the air. Tian. Upon seeing this, Chen Wuqing's figure suddenly dashed forward with a dark dust spear in his hand. The spear was like a dragon, and countless spear shadows danced wildly in the air, bombarding down on Zhao Lei. Little ant, you're courting death. Zhao Lei shouted coldly and slammed his palm again. The sound of thunder resounded in the air. The next moment, Chen Wuqing let out a blood-curdling scream as his figure directly fell to the ground. At the critical moment, Nietio reacted quickly and caught Chen Wuqing. Chen Wuqing's strength was not weak, but when faced with an expert that was a realm higher than him, he appeared to be unable to withstand a single blow. Zhao Lei did not use his full strength in this palm. Otherwise, Chen Wuqing would have been killed on the spot. Tian stabilized his figure. When he saw that Chen Wuqing was injured, his eyes trembled, and his killing intent surged. Tian, return with me. Zhao Lei could not help but tremble when he felt Tian's berserk fighting intent. He did not expect that an early-stage mid-god martial artist could actually unleash such a powerful fighting intent when facing a mid-stage high-god martial artist. At this moment, Zhao Lei felt that Nie Tian was an opponent worthy of respect. Is that possible? Nie Tianling laughed. Then, the 9 dragon veins in his body began to revolve crazily. A sea of golden lightning appeared behind him. An endless dragon aura spread out, enveloping the space within 10,000 meters. Under the influence of the dragon aura, even the space started to tremble. Zhao Lei's eyebrows sank when he saw this. He said in surprise, "What a powerful lightning energy." He was a lightning attribute martial artist and had a deep understanding of the lightning energy. However, among all the lightning energy he had seen, there was no energy stronger than Yetian's. "Where does your lightning energy come from?" Zhao Lei calmed down and asked. He knew that Nie Tian was not a lightning attribute martial artist. How could his body release such a powerful lightning energy? "That's none of your business," Nie Tianling replied coldly. "You're courting death." Zhao Lei's eyebrows sank. His eyes were filled with intense, killing intent and desire. He could feel that if he were to fuse with Nie Tian's lightning energy, his strength would be greatly enhanced. "You think you can covet my power of lightning with just you? Dream on." How could Nie Tian not know what Zhao Lei was thinking? He let out a cold roar and blurred into motion. Behind him, an enormous golden dragon that was 3,000 to 4,000 meters long appeared in the sea of lightning. It was wreathed in raging dragon aura and lightning power. At the same time, the terrifying primal chaos flame was burning around it. So powerful. Zhao Lei's eyes widened when he saw this. He felt a trace of danger. Nie Tian, Chen Wuqing, Yang Zhongxiu, and the others were also dumbfounded. Chen Wuqing, in particular, was petrified. Previously, he had thought that even if he wasn't as strong as Nie Tian, he wouldn't be much weaker than him at all. But as Nie Tian revealed more and more trump cards and his combat strength grew stronger, Chen Wuqing realized the gap between him and Nie Tian. At this moment, when Chen Wuqing saw the golden dragon beneath Nie Tian's feet, he no longer wanted to compete with Nie Tian. "Zhao Lei, I'll give you a chance as well. Get the hell out of here." Nie Tian blurred into motion, his eyes filled with killing intent as he roared. "Nie Tian, you are too arrogant." Zhao Lei furrowed his brows and let out a low roar. The aura behind him erupted like a volcano. The aura was majestic and terrifying. He was a mighty mid-stage high god. How could he be scared off by a mid-stage high god? More importantly, he wanted Nie Tian's lightning energy. "In that case, don't blame me for what I'm about to do." Nie Tian's voice was deep and low. His voice was filled with intense, killing intent. Then he moved. The golden dragon beneath his feet rolled out. The momentum of heaven and earth was forcefully changed. It was as though the space between heaven and earth had become narrow. Roar! The next moment, a deafening dragon roar reverberated through heaven and earth. The chaotic flame on the golden dragon's body burned even more wantonly. The golden dragon turned into a gigantic fire dragon. It was as though even the space around it was burning. Zhao Lei's face darkened when he felt the aura of the golden dragon. He felt that the lightning energy in his body was being suppressed. Nie Tian's lightning energy came from the 9-star dragon vein. After being strengthened by the divine lightning glyph and the glazed chi, it could suppress almost any lightning attribute energy. Chapter 1553. In the void, the shadow of a dragon soared into the sky. Its aura surged, and the 9 heavens rumbled. Although Zhao Lei felt that his strength was being suppressed, he had no way out at this moment. If he retreated, only death awaited him. At this moment, he could only fight with his life on the line. 9th heaven's thunder, one strike. Zhao Lei roared, and the power of lightning behind him instantly condensed, transforming into 9 giant lightning bolts that resembled heavenly pillars. They floated in the air like giant dancing snakes. The 9 giant lightning bolts were dozens of meters wide and tens of thousands of meters long. The sky was filled with the terrifying power of lightning. "Kill!" Upon seeing this, Nie Tian let out a low roar. Not only was there fear in his eyes, but there was even more violent killing intent in them. "Kill! Kill! Kill!" Violent sounds of killing echoed in the air. It was extremely violent, and it made people tremble in fear just by hearing it. Tian is so scary. Yang Zhongxiu looked at the scene in the sky with a dumbfounded expression and exclaimed in his heart. His perception was very strong, and he could feel that Tian's aura was even more powerful than Zhao Lei's. At this moment, Yang Zhongxiu realized how stupid it was to rob Tian. Yang Zhongxiu felt lucky that he was on Tian's side. He had a feeling that the silver-haired young man in front of him would one day stand at the peak of the 9 realms. Kaboom! 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 In the void, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. Dark clouds surged, and it was completely dark. Only the blinding lightning bolts could be seen, as if it was the end of the world. Kaboom! Finally, the golden lightning dragon and the 9 giant lightning snakes collided. In an instant, heaven and earth wailed, and the wind and clouds surged. Endless power of lightning exploded, wreaking havoc in the space. Crack, crack, crack. In the dark sky, countless blinding lightning bolts flashed, like sharp blades that wanted to tear the sky and earth apart. Chi, chi, chi. Tian and Zhao Lei's figures could no longer be seen in the sky. Only ear-piercing noises could be heard. Loud rumbling sounds could be heard, and thunder could be heard. These were 2 waves of lightning clashing and devouring each other, both wanting to tear each other apart. After a long time, the sound of thunder gradually weakened, and the dusky sky gradually became clear. 2 figures appeared high up in the sky. The lightning dragon and the 9 bolts of lightning had already disappeared, turning into the power of lightning and dissipating in the air. Tian's face was pale. His figure stood in the air, but his aura was very stable. There were no wounds on his body. On the other hand, Zhao Lei's entire body was drenched in blood. His face was already beyond recognition, and his entire body was covered in horrifying injuries that were deep to the point bones could be seen. What was even more terrifying was that Zhao Lei's entire body was surging with reddish-gold lightning. His body was actually filled with the power of lightning, constantly tearing apart his body. Why? Zhao Lei's eyes flickered with fear and disbelief. He couldn't understand why he would lose to a mid-god. What kind of power was hidden in Tian's body that allowed him to skip a realm and defeat a mid-stage high god? You want to know why? Tian took a step forward, and the corners of his mouth curled into a strange smile. He said in a cold voice, "It's simple because I'm stronger than you." His voice was indifferent, but it was full of dominance. The reason why Tian could defeat Zhao Lei was indeed because he was stronger than the latter. This time, Tian had used 2 many trump cards: the Supreme Dragon Vein, the Thunderbolt Sword Essence, and the Flame of Chaos condensed from the Supreme Twin Flames. Most importantly, it was the suppression of the power of lightning. Tian's power of lightning had an absolute suppression over Zhao Lei, preventing the latter from fully exerting his strength. This was the key to Tian's victory. "This is impossible." Zhao Lei roared furiously, as though he had gone mad. Bang! However, at this moment, his body could no longer withstand the power of lightning in his body. With a violent shake, his body directly exploded, turning into a mass of bloody light. The tragic scene made everyone suck in a breath of cold air. Even their tailbones felt cold. Tian's strength was so strong that it exceeded everyone's expectations. Zhao Lei, the commander of the Red Lunar Divine Palace's guards, a mid-stage high god expert, ultimately died in the hands of Tian, an early-stage mid-god. When Tian saw that Zhao Lei was finally dead, his tense body finally relaxed. However, his body trembled slightly, and he violently spat out a mouthful of blood. During the exchange, just now, Zhao Lei's power of lightning had also seeped into his body. He was just holding on because he didn't want Zhao Lei to see it. Now that Zhao Lei was dead, he didn't need to hold on any longer. Big brother Tian. Seeing this, ED leaped to Tian's side and supported Tian. "I'm fine." Tian forced a smile. His pale face was devoid of any color. First, it was the battle with Wang Lin, then Zhao Lei. These two battles had consumed all the energy in Nietian's body. At this moment, he was extremely weak. Nietian raised his hand slightly, put away Zhao Lei's godhead, and erased the divine sense within it. Zhao Lei's godhead contained a powerful lightning force. Absorbing this lightning force could further increase Nietian's strength. "Ed, we need to leave this place quickly." Nietian frowned. He could feel a large number of cultivators rushing over. He couldn't help but say in a low voice. Ed nodded heavily and landed with Nietian. "Lord Nietian, this is a vitality-restoring pellet. Please take it." Yang Zhongxiu came to Nietian's side and handed him a divine pellet. Nietian took it and swallowed it. Yang Zhongxiu was a smart person. He wouldn't play any tricks. After swallowing the vitality-restoring pellet, Nietian's complexion improved and his aura recovered slightly. "Let's go." Without hesitation, Nietian's figure flashed, dashing out of the mountain range. The others followed closely behind him. However, because Nietian was in a weakened state, he couldn't use the wings of Star Soul, and he couldn't bring others with him. Moreover, Chun Wuqing's injuries weren't light, so their speed wasn't fast. At this time, a large number of cultivators from the Crimson Moon Divine Palace were rushing over. Nietian frowned when he felt the Crimson Moon Divine Palace's pursuers getting closer and closer. Suddenly, he thought of something and stretched out his palm. A ball of light appeared in his palm and condensed into a taboo divine boat. "Nietian, what are you doing?" Seeing this, Yang Zhongxiu was stunned. He hurriedly said, "The taboo divine boat can only be used once. If we use it again, it won't be able to withstand the impact of the space-time storm." "Elder Yang, don't worry. We don't need to cross realms. We just need the taboo divine boat to bring us out of here quickly." Nietian smiled faintly. Then, he opened the taboo divine boat and gestured for everyone to enter. Yang Zhongxiu immediately understood. The taboo divine boat's greatest use was to cross realms. However, even if it didn't cross realms, its speed was still extremely fast. It was much faster than ordinary divine boats. As soon as everyone entered the realm boat, a thought entered Nietian's mind, and the void shook slightly as they flew forward at full speed. The moment the taboo divine boat took off, a strong space-time resistance surged in the void. It bombarded the taboo divine boat, causing it to shake violently. Fortunately, the taboo divine boat was quite sturdy. It didn't collapse. In just a short while, the taboo divine boat had traveled thousands of miles, leaving the Crimson Moon Mountain range far behind. "Let's stop here." Nietian looked down at the mountain range that stretched for thousands of miles. He smiled slightly and steered the taboo divine boat to a stop. Boom! At this time, a strong space-time resistance bombarded the taboo divine boat. The taboo divine boat shook violently, and a huge crack appeared on the boat's body. Chapter 1554. Floating in midair, Nietian sensed the unfavorable situation. As a thought entered his mind, he activated his realm boat. Boom! Suddenly, a fierce astral wind came from the sky. It was like a wind blade, cold and sharp. Luckily, Nietian and the others were very strong. They were not afraid of this level of astral winds. "Hurry up and leave the divine boat," Nietian growled, gesturing for everyone to leave the realm divine boat. Everyone leaped out. Nietian was the last to do so. Bang! Just as he leaped out of the divine boat, a loud explosion sounded, and the realm divine boat crumbled into pieces. That was close. Nietian stabilized himself and let out a long breath. His face was slightly pale. If they had come out a moment later, they would have been destroyed along with the realm divine boat. The realm divine boat had a terrifying space-time spirit formation. When it collapsed, the space-time pressure was so great that even a lord might not be able to withstand it. The others looked at the realm divine boat that disappeared into the void. They were all shocked. "Luckily, we survived." Yang Zhongxiu wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and laughed dryly. Nietian turned to look at the others. After making sure that they were all fine, he said, "Let's go down and see what this place is." Everyone nodded in agreement. Then, they descended and entered the mountain range below. This is ridiculous. We actually came to the cloud-shattering mountain range. Nyetian took out the map of the god's shocking realm and looked at it carefully. He realized that they had come to the cloud-shattering divine palace's territory. The cloud-shattering land was tens of thousands of miles away from the Crimson Moonland. Nyetian felt that the realm divine boat had traveled so far in just a moment. Nyetian looked around. They were in the outermost mountains of the cloud-shattering mountain range. The entire cloud-shattering mountain range was shaped like a long snake. It stretched for tens of thousands of miles. Next, Nyetian asked Yang Zhongqiu to check on Chun Wuqing's injuries. Fortunately, they were not serious. Big brother Nyetian, we have come to a place under the jurisdiction of the cloud-splitting divine palace. Will the cloud-splitting divine palace lord come looking for trouble with us? At this moment, Ed took a step forward and asked with a worried expression. During the grand competition of the 12th Shrine, Ed had killed the son of Palace Master Liu. Now that he had come to the cloud-splitting mountain range, he was very worried. The land of Shattered Cloud is so big. How did Palace Master Shattered Cloud know that we are here? Nyetian chuckled. Ed was worrying too much. Then, Nyetian scanned the surroundings. Not finding anything suspicious, he found a secluded place for everyone to rest and recover their strength. Fat, what should we do next? Half a day later, Nyetian stood up. His body had recovered to its peak state. He transmitted his voice to the fat cat. In fact, he didn't know where to go next. Just now, he was busy fleeing in panic, and he had rushed to the cloud-shattering mountain range. Nyetian remembered that he had promised Zhao Zi that once he obtained the Origin Stone, he would let the latter absorb some origin energy of the Origin Stone. However, the development of the situation was far beyond his expectations. The Origin Stone was used to open the geographical meridian map. Moreover, he had completely fallen out with the Crimson Moon Divine Palace. Moreover, he had made a deal with the Net Above and Earth to give the Origin Stone to the Net Above and Earth. However, the Net Above and Earth hidden guards that were protecting Mo Rushi and Cher were killed in the Divine Shepherd domain, and the Heaven and Earth duo appeared. As a result, this deal seemed very insignificant. The Net Above and Earth duo failed to protect Mo Rushi and Cher, and the Heaven and Earth duo took Cher away, so this deal was meaningless. I will have a chance to meet Zhao Zi in the future. At that time, I will think of a way to make it up to him. Nyetian smiled bitterly. Nyetian. At this time, the fat cat appeared on Nyetian's shoulder and said with a smile, "Take out the map of the God Awakening Domain and the geographical meridian map." Nyetian took out the two maps and opened them. The fat cat looked at the two maps, and its small body moved back and forth as if it was comparing the two maps. Nyetian could only understand the map of the God Awakening Domain. As for the geographical meridian map, he could not understand it at all. It's here. Suddenly, the fat cat seemed to have discovered something. Its small paw swept across the map of the God Awakening Domain and left a mark. It said, "This is an entrance to the Nine Dragons, Earth Vein." The entrance to the Nine Dragons, Earth Vein? Nyetian was stunned. He realized that the location marked by the fat cat was very close to where they were now. It was at most a few dozen miles away. The others also gathered around and looked at the two maps in a daze. Other than the fat cat, no one could understand the geographical meridian map. Wait a moment. The fat cat laughed and swept its fat paw across the map. Glazed cheese surged into the God Awakening Domain map and changed the runes on the map. A moment later, 9 dragon-shaped runes appeared on the map, covering the entire God Awakening Domain map. The 9 Dragons Earth Vein is so big. Looking at the map, Nyetian instantly realized that the little fat cat had shown the location of the 9 Dragons Earth Veins on the map. He did not expect the 9 Dragons Earth Vein to be so big that it almost covered the entire God Awakening Domain. I am also surprised that such a vast Earth Vein is hidden in the small God Awakening Domain. The fat cat chuckled and said, "If the 9 Dragons Earth Vein is excavated, I am afraid the God Awakening Domain will become more terrifying than the upper realms." The reason why the God-sealing domain was an upper realm was not because it was located higher than the God-awakening domain, but because the God-sealing domain contained denser spirit energy. If the 9 dragons' earth vein of the God-awakening domain was excavated, the Mother Earth Yuan Qi contained in the vein would be released, and the spirit energy of the entire God-awakening domain would increase by tens of times. If that was the case, the God-awakening domain would also become an upper realm stronger than the God-sealing domain. Nie Tian looked around and saw that they were not far from a dragon-shaped earth vein. They were at the tail of the dragon-shaped earth vein, and that tail was the entrance of the earth vein mentioned by the fat cat. In that case, let's hurry to the entrance of the earth vein. Nie Tian was very excited. The legendary 9 dragons' earth vein was not far from them. How could he not be excited? And the fat cat asked Nie Tian to put away the map and reminded, "Don't take out the map again. Just look at the map of the God-awakening domain from now on." The map had the full picture of the 9 dragons' earth vein. This map was probably the most precious thing in the God-awakening domain. Nie Tian put away the map and prepared to leave. Roar! Suddenly, a violent roar came from afar. It seemed to be the roar of some kind of divine beast. Let's go take a look. Nie Tian was startled. He flew in the direction of the beast's roar. His figure was extremely fast. After a few flashes, he appeared in a dense forest. As far as the eye could see, a 1,000-meter-long giant beast was roaring. Around the giant beast, there were many naked, muscular men constantly attacking the giant beast. Hunting beasts. Seeing this, Nie Tian frowned. With a wry smile, he prepared to leave. He was worried about the 9 dragons' earth vein and did not want to meddle in other people's business. Roar! But at this moment, the beast suddenly roared to the sky. Then, its bloody body emitted a dark golden light. Waves of wild energy were released and rushed in all directions. Chapter 1555. Gene 2. Nie Tian's eyes darkened when he heard this name. It seemed to be a very familiar name. He must have heard it somewhere before. Ah! At this moment, countless screams rang out. The giant beast Gene 2 was completely enraged. It directly went berserk. Waves of golden power swept out like a raging wave. The people surrounding it were knocked away. For a moment, miserable screams rang out. Gene was enraged, and his mountain-like body suddenly charged forward. He actually wanted to torture and kill everyone. Walala! However, Gene 2's body had only rushed out halfway when it stopped in midair. It turned out that its 4 limbs were actually locked by huge iron chains. Roar! Gene 2's 4 limbs were restricted. It was even more furious. Blood surged out of its body. Waves of golden power surged out. The 4 snake-like iron chains could not hold on any longer. It seemed like they were going to break in an instant. Clan leader, this golden-furred beast is going berserk. Let's retreat. A middle-aged man sensed that something was wrong. He flashed to the side of an old man and shouted anxiously, "Retreat." The old man took a deep look at Gene 2's day. His eyes revealed great unwillingness, but he still gave the order to retreat. Although Gene 2 was very precious, the lives of his clansmen were more important. "Grandpa, this golden-furred beast is about to die. Let me kill it." However, at this moment, an angry roar suddenly rang out. Then, a figure flew out and punched at Gene 2 with his bare hands. "Yin Tian, come back." The old man was stunned. Seeing the figure in midair, he immediately shouted. However, it was already too late. Boom! Yin Tian was in midair. His fist had already landed on Gene 2's body. However, this punch did not hurt the berserk Gene 2 at all. Instead, it made Gene 2 even more furious. Roar! Gene 2 roared at the sky. He suddenly raised his front claws and swung them with all his strength. One of the iron chains was broken. The violent power whistled through the air, bloody and violent. Yin Tian, seeing that the situation was bad, the old man cried out. He wanted to help, but his body trembled and he vomited a mouthful of blood. Gene 2 was very strong. If this claw landed, this young man, named Yin Tian, would undoubtedly die. golden-furred beast die. Just at this moment of life and death, a roar of rage suddenly rang out in the air. After that, a silhouette appeared with a pair of starlight wings spanning several hundred meters behind him. His silhouette was as fast as lightning as he pierced out with his sword. Boom! The sword's shadow descended, and with a muffled sound, Jean Tu's forearm was directly cut off. Immediately, blood gushed out, and a bloody screen appeared in the air. It was an extremely tragic sight. The sudden scene caused everyone to be stunned, and they all looked at the silver-haired young man in midair with astonished expressions. They were deeply shocked by the strength of this person. The person who acted at the critical moment was none other than Nietian. Roar! One of Jean Tu's forearms had been cut off by Nietian, but it became even more violent. With a furious roar, its huge body actually stood up and swung its forearms at Nietian. Nietian frowned. He did not expect Jean Tu's fighting spirit to be so intense. In this kind of situation, he still wanted to fight to the death. Die! In the next moment, Nietian's face darkened, and his eyes were full of killing intent. He directly blasted out with his sword, and the mighty sword shadow landed on Jean Tu's head, creating a huge bloody hole. Blood gushed out like rain. Roar! Jean Tu's huge body froze, and it let out a scream before death. A pair of golden eyes like the sun and moon stared at Nietian. Nietian's eyes narrowed slightly. He did not feel a violent aura in Jean Tu's eyes, but a kind of pleading, as if it wanted to obtain something from Nietian. No! At this moment, Nietian suddenly realized something, and his face darkened. Jean Tu clearly had the ability to break free from the iron chains and leave, but it insisted on killing people. There must be something strange about this. Nietian's eyes trembled, and he suddenly looked at the ground. The scene that entered his eyes made his heart tremble. On the ground, in a puddle of blood, there was a furry little fellow. It was about the size of a palm, and its golden fur was shining. Its eyes had not completely opened. It's a little Jean Tu. Nietian immediately understood. The reason why Jean Tu did not leave was because it wanted to protect its child. This Jean Tu's fighting spirit was so strong that it did not retreat, even when its forearm was cut off. It was precisely because it wanted to protect its child. Thinking of this, Nietian's eyes trembled, and he felt very uncomfortable. Even though he had killed Jean Tu to save a person, he could not bear to let a newborn Jean Tu lose its mother. However, this was the world of martial arts, where the strong were respected. Many experts regarded human life as nothing more than grass, let alone a Jean Tuesday. Nietian's figure moved, and the wings on his back fell, wrapping up the little Jean Tuesday. The Jean Tu's mother landed on the ground with a loud bang. She stared fixedly at the little Jean Tu beside Nietian, revealing a strong motherly love. However, the life aura in her eyes was rapidly weakening, and finally disappeared completely. Don't worry, I will protect your child. Nietian sighed and held the little Jean Tu in his arms. The little fellow had not opened its eyes yet, and it had actually fallen asleep. It did not know that its mother had died to protect it. Jean Tu is dead. At this time, the people surrounding the Jean Tu reacted and looked at Nietian in the air with fear and shock. They had exhausted all their strength, but still failed to kill the Jean Tu. Nietian came and killed it with 2 slashes. This kind of combat strength was really terrifying. Nietian also had a puzzled expression at this time. He was very familiar with the name Jean Tuesday. The Jean Tu was one of the 4 great ancient ferocious beasts. The combat strength of an adult Jean Tu was comparable to a peak divine state expert. Why was this Jean Tu so weak? It seemed to be similar to an ordinary 3rd rank or 4th rank divine beast. It was very strange. Even if this Jean Tu was weak because it had just given birth to a little Jean Tu, it should not only have this kind of combat strength. Nietian, the Jean Tu, is indeed one of the 4 great ancient ferocious beasts. At this time, the fat cat's voice was heard. She frowned and said, "The ancient Jean Tu was very terrifying. An adult Gene 2 was even more terrifying than a peak divine state expert. Unfortunately, if the Gene 2 wants to grow to the extreme, it needs to devour a very special thing. This thing has disappeared now, so the Gene 2 has become an ordinary divine beast. I see. Nietion's eyes slightly narrowed, but he did not ask any more questions. At that moment, the old man came to his senses, took a step forward, and thanked Nietion sincerely. "Thank you for your help, Lord. Don't mention it." Nietion responded indifferently. He did not want to help at first. Killing a seriously injured Gene 2's mother was not glorious. He was just meddling in other people's business. Without him, I could still kill the Gene 2. However, at this time, the young man called Yun Tian growled in a low voice. His face was very unfriendly. "Shut up," the old man shouted angrily. Yun Tian's face turned red, and he did not dare to speak anymore. "I am the village chief of Little Rock Village, Yin Qing. This is my grandson, Yin Tian. If I have offended you in any way, please forgive me." Yin Qing bowed slightly and was very respectful. Although Nietion was not very old and was not much older than Yin Tian, under the premise that strength was everything, Yin Qing had to lower his head. Chapter 1556. Could Little Rock Village be the entrance to the Nine Dragons, Earth Vein? Nietion thought to himself. He then looked at Yun Qing and asked, "Elder Yun, is the Little Rock Village you mentioned about 30 li away from here? My lord knows about Little Rock Village?" Yun Qing was astounded. He didn't expect Nietion to know about Little Rock Village. As expected, Nietion was inwardly surprised. He then smiled and said, "To tell you the truth, I have some matters to attend to in Little Rock Village. Could Elder Yun please take us there?" "No." Before Yun Qing could speak, Yin Tian sternly refused. "Little Rock Village has never allowed outsiders to enter. Who knows who you are? Maybe you're a spy sent by the bandits." Nietion's eyes narrowed, and he couldn't help but glance at Yin Tian. This youngster's talent was not bad. He looked like a teenager, but he already possessed the strength of an early-stage low god. Could he also be an innate godhead cultivator? Nietion was stunned when he sensed Yun Tian's strength. Unless it was someone like ED with a special bloodline and a powerful demon dragon's heart, it was impossible for a teenager to possess the strength of a low god. "Nietion, there's something strange about this youngster. He isn't an innate godhead cultivator, but he has absorbed some extremely powerful energy." Fat Cat's voice sounded, reminding Nietion to be careful of this youngster called Yin Tian. "You're so arrogant. If it wasn't for Brother Nietion, you would have died under that golden beast's feet." ED couldn't stand it anymore and loudly rebuked. "It's fine that you didn't thank Brother Nietion, but you even suspected him of being a bandit. What a heartless and unscrupulous person." "Kid, who are you calling heartless and unscrupulous?" Yin Tian suddenly looked at ED. His eyes suddenly darkened and became extremely cold. His anger was ready to explode. ED and Yin Tian were about the same age and strength, early-stage low god realm. However, Nietion estimated that ED's battle strength was above Yin Tian's. After all, ED possessed a powerful divine dragon bloodline and had fused with a demon dragon's heart. "I'm talking to you. What can you do to me?" ED was very unconvinced and replied forcefully, "Brat, you're courting death." Yin Tian was instantly enraged. His figure flashed, and he actually struck out with his palm towards ED. "If I were afraid of you, I wouldn't be called ED." ED was also very angry. He let out a low roar and punched out. The shadow of a dragon whizzed out with a fierce aura. Nietion watched from the side and did not stop them. He wanted to see who was stronger, ED or Yin Tian. Yin Qing didn't make a move either. He seemed to have the same idea. Bang! The fist and the palm collided in midair, creating a loud explosion. Shockwaves surged out in all directions. ED and Yin Tian actually retreated at the same time, then steadied their bodies at the same time and glared at each other angrily. When Tian saw this, he couldn't help but feel puzzled. He hadn't expected that the collision between ED and Yin Tian would actually be equally matched. ED's talent was extraordinary. His divine dragon bloodline was already monstrous. In addition to the heart of the demonic dragon, his battle prowess should be comparable to a late-stage or even a peak low-god expert. However, Yin Tian looked sloppy and ordinary, and yet Tian didn't find anything noteworthy about him. Why was his battle prowess also so terrifying? It was really strange. "Brat, you're not bad." Again, Yin Tian steadied his body and looked at ED with burning eyes. He let out a low roar, his battle intent surging. Come on, come on. Who's afraid of who? ED was also very violent. He didn't fear Yin Tian at all. ED, stop. At this moment, Nye Tian stood out and stopped ED. Yin Tian quickly apologized to this little brother. Yin Qing also stepped forward, looked at Yin Tian, and bellowed angrily. I didn't lose to him. Why should I apologize? Yin Tian's sword-like eyebrows were raised, and his face was full of dissatisfaction. Elder Yun, ED is also at fault in this matter. I think it's better to forget it. Nye Tian smiled faintly, hinting ED to stop talking. The child is not sensible. I've made Mr. Nye Tian laugh at me. Yin Qing smiled awkwardly, but his love for his grandson could be seen in his eyes. Nye Tian smiled faintly and said, Elder Yun, I really need to enter Little Rock Village for some business. Please do me a favor. This. Yin Qing looked at Nye Tian with an awkward expression and said, Mr. Nye, to tell you the truth, our Little Rock Village has always lived a simple life. We don't like to interact with people from the outside world. Moreover, there have been more bandits recently. The villagers are in a panic. If I bring a stranger into the village now, I'm afraid the villagers will object. Nye Tian's face couldn't help but darken. He didn't expect Little Rock Village to be like a paradise. Elder Yun, do I look like a hidden member of the bandits? Nye Tian smiled faintly and asked sincerely, Mr. Nye, you misunderstand. I don't doubt your identity. It's just that our Little Rock Village really doesn't like to interact with outsiders. Yin Qing nodded with a sincere expression. He was also a person with experience. He saw that Nye Tian and the others' talent and strength were all top-notch. They definitely couldn't be bandits. Moreover, what he said was the truth. Little Rock Village normally didn't allow outsiders to enter. A group of people who bite the hand that feeds them. ED couldn't stand it anymore. He said coldly, if it wasn't for Big Brother Nye Tian, many of you would have died. Now it's so difficult to enter the village. It's like it's taking your lives. ED. Nye Tian's face darkened. He hinted ED to stop talking. This. Yin Qing's face was embarrassed. He thought for a while and said, Mr. Nye, do you really want to enter Little Rock Village? Yes. Nye Tian nodded heavily. That little brother just now was right. If it wasn't for Mr. Nye, our casualties would definitely be huge. Mr. Nye is our savior. If I don't let Mr. Nye enter the village, I'll feel bad. As Yin Qing spoke, he glanced at the others. Finally, he nodded and said, I'll bring Mr. Nye into the village now. Grandpa, Yin Tian was obviously not happy. He shouted loudly, I'm the village chief. It's decided. Yin Qing replied solemnly. He glared at Yin Tian. Next, the people of Little Rock Village cut up Jin Tu's body and carried it away. Nye Tian followed behind the people of Little Rock Village. His gaze swept across Yin Tian's body from time to time. He was very curious. What kind of power did Yin Tian have in his body to be able to fight against ED? This youngster is a little strange. Nye Tian smiled faintly in his heart. He didn't think too much about it. After a while, the group arrived at a hidden valley. Nye Tian looked at the valley in front of him. He couldn't help but frown. He realized that this was a dead end. Other than the entrance, the other three sides were all steep cliffs. He unconsciously opened the holographic divine glyph. He still didn't find anything strange. At this time, Yin Qing took a step forward. He came to the opposite side of the cliff. He formed a strange seal with his hands. Immediately, a ray of light surged out and shot into the cliff. Chapter 1557. What an intricate spell formation. Nye Tian frowned, his face full of astonishment. He had been searching the valley for a long time, but he couldn't sense the spell formation at all. Intricate indeed. Little Fat Cat's voice rang out at this moment as it exclaimed, "This formation should be an ancient formation. I'm afraid that even if I wanted to open this formation, it would be impossible." Nyetian couldn't help but agree, because he couldn't even sense the aura of the spell formation. Not only was the ancient spell formation powerful, it was also very well hidden. "Mr. Nye, please." Yunqing opened the secret door, stepped back, and gestured for Nyetian and the others to enter. Nyetian, of course, knew that Yunqing was still worried about him, but he didn't mind. He smiled faintly and stepped into the passage. The passage was about 4 meters high and 2 meters wide. It wasn't wide, but it was very narrow. The walls of the passage were very smooth, and they shone with a crystal-clear light, as if they had been cut by a knife. Nyetian only now realized that the secret door was hidden in the cliff, and it was thousands of meters long. After the secret door was closed, the 1,000-meter-thick cliff acted as a barrier. Nyetian sensed that the cliff contained a very strange power that seemed to be able to strengthen the cliff. This cliff is really terrifying. Even a peak over god would have a hard time breaking through it. Fat Cat sensed the toughness of the cliff and couldn't help but exclaim, "What kind of place is this little rock village? How could it be protected by such a terrifying spell formation?" Nyetian frowned, puzzled. An ordinary mountain village couldn't have such a terrifying spell formation protecting it. Furthermore, Nyetian discovered that almost every villager in Little Rock Village was a lesser god. Even though that wasn't a very high level of strength, it was still ridiculously strong for an ordinary villager. It seems that this Little Rock Village is very unusual. Nyetian's eyes narrowed, and he thought to himself. Soon, Nyetian and the others walked out of the passage, and a small village appeared in front of them. There was a small bridge over a flowing river, and smoke curled up from the chimney. It was a peaceful scene, like a paradise. If I could live in a place like this with Ru, Shi, and Cher, it would definitely be great, Nyetian thought to himself as he looked at the village in front of him. It was a paradise far away from worldly disputes. There was no bullying by the strong, and no deceit. Such a life seemed pretty good. Thinking of Mo, Rushi, and Cher, Nyetian's expression turned solemn. The pain of not being able to be by one side was indescribable. "Mr. Nye, this is Little Rock Village." Yunqing faintly smiled, his eyes revealing a strong sense of satisfaction. Nyetian and the others didn't waste any more time and immediately walked towards the village. Along the way, the villagers pointed at them and whispered to each other. It was obvious that they rarely saw outsiders enter, and they were both curious and fearful. Nyetian felt the villagers' strange gazes and couldn't help but smile bitterly. He was such a normal person, but he had become a monster here. As they walked, Nyetian sensed the aura around him, hoping to sense the aura of the 9 Dragons Earth Vein. He could clearly feel that the Shun Yi in Little Rock Village was much stronger than the outside world, even stronger than the Middle Realm's god shepherding territory. Perhaps this was the reason why the villagers of Little Rock Village were so strong. Yunqing asked the others to disperse, and then said to Nyetian, "Mr. Nye, please follow me." Under Yunqing's lead, a moment later, Nyetian and the others arrived at the Little Rock Village's meeting hall. In the hall, the atmosphere was very oppressive. More than a dozen elders stared at Nyetian, their eyes extremely unfriendly. These people were from the Little Rock Village's Elder Council, and they were currently discussing whether to let Nyetian and the others stay. Yunqing, even though you are the village chief, bringing outsiders into the village without permission is against the village rules, right? At this time, a slightly chubby elder opened his mouth and questioned Yunqing. "I know this matter is a bit inappropriate, but Mr. Nye saved many people of Little Rock Village. He is the Little Rock Village's benefactor." Yunqing said lightly. Glancing at Nyetian, he forced out a smile. Making the decision to bring Nyetian and the others into Little Rock Village, for Yunqing, this was very stressful. Little Rock Village's benefactor? At this time, a thin elder stood up, his face dark as he looked at Nyetian, and said in a low voice, "Little Rock Village has always been self-sufficient. We do not interact with outsiders. We do not need benefactors. Yun Xian, your words are not appropriate. Yun Xing frowned, looked at the elder in front of him, and said in a low voice, Little Rock Village does not interact with the outside world, but we should at least distinguish between kindness and hatred. Mr. Nye saved the people of Little Rock Village. Of course, he is the Little Rock Village's benefactor. If you don't want him to stay, I will send them away. Yun Xian was the president of the Council of Elders. His position in Little Rock Village was second only to Yun Xing. His opinion basically represented the Council of Elders. The other elders would not object. Nye Tian was speechless. He couldn't just leave without doing anything, right? However, at this time, Yun Xian sneered and said in a low voice, The location of Little Rock Village is our greatest secret. Since this person has come to Little Rock Village, how can we let him leave so easily? Nye Tian could feel the murderous intent from Yun Xian. His eyes couldn't help but narrow. Yun Xian, what do you mean by that? Yun Xing was also surprised. He did not expect Yun Xian to have such a reaction. Since he did not want Nye Tian to stay, then let him go. Was he going to kill Nye Tian to protect the secret of Little Rock Village? At this moment, Yun Xian had the intention to kill Nye Tian. These people from the Council of Elders of Little Rock Village were all mid-level gods, and Yun Xian himself was a late-stage mid-level god. He saw that there were only 3 mid-level gods on Nye Tian's side, so he did not care about them at all. But how could he have known that Nye Tian, an early-stage mid-level god, had such extraordinary battle strength and had once killed a high-level god? It was not an exaggeration to say that Nye Tian's strength alone was enough to annihilate the entire Council of Elders of Little Rock Village. Everyone, are you willing to watch this person leave? Yun Xian sneered, his gaze turning to the other elders. What does the great elder want to do? We are willing to follow your orders. The chubby elder who first spoke nodded with a smile. His gaze on Nye Tian's group was filled with murderous intent. Nye Tian's face darkened. These people were simply unreasonable. They wanted to kill him. Yun Xian, what are you trying to do? Don't tell me you want to kill someone in front of me, the village chief? Yun Xing bellowed. He took a step forward, blocking in front of Nye Tian's group. He had never thought that Yun Xian would be so arrogant and scrupulously revealing his murderous intent. Village chief. Yun Xian looked at Yun Xing, smiled coldly, and said with a face full of mockery, Yun Xing, do you think you can still be the village chief? Yun Xian, you... Hearing Yun Xian's words, Yun Xing's face darkened, and he was momentarily speechless. He knew that Yun Xian had always coveted the position of village chief, but he did not expect the latter to say it so openly. Chapter 1558. A battle was about to break out in the main hall of Little Stone Village. Nye Tian saw that Yun Xian was about to act, but his reaction was extremely calm. He didn't place Yun Xian's group in his eyes at all. They were just a bunch of chickens and dogs that couldn't even withstand a single blow. However, this was Little Stone Village, and he didn't want to kill anyone. But if Yun Xian insisted, then he couldn't be blamed. Yun Xian, had you gone crazy? Yun Xing glared at Yun Xian and roared. Yun Xing, you can call me crazy or stupid. In any case, in order to protect the secret of Little Stone Village, these people must die. Yun Xian's eyes were as dark as water, and a cold, killing intent filled the hall. You madman! Yun Xing roared, his face flushing red. How could he not know what Yun Xian was thinking? It was all for the position of village chief. The Yun family of Little Stone Village had 2 main branches. One was Yun Xing's, and the other was Yun Xian's. Yun Xing's branch was originally very strong, but 5 or 6 years ago, his son died tragically during a hunt, causing his branch to decline. Yun Xian's branch, on the other hand, was rapidly rising. His son Black Dragon's strength had increased by leaps and bounds in recent years, already surpassing Yun Xing's. However, due to the rules of Little Stone Village, Yun Xian and Black Dragon had always endured and didn't forcefully seize power. Now, Yun Xing had brought Nye Tian's group into the village, breaking the rules. This was the same as giving Yun Xian a handle that could be used against him, giving him a reason to act. Yun Xian, for a mere village chief position, are you really going to kill your own people? Qing's eyes were scarlet red, clearly enraged. Qing, I don't have time to argue with you. Let's kill this brat first. Qin let out an enraged roar. Without the slightest hesitation, he took a step forward and slapped his palm towards Nie Tian. You're courting death. Nie Tianling coldly stared at Qin, the corner of his mouth twitching. He didn't even draw his sword. Instead, his body moved and a violent sword energy held out. Bang! In the next moment, a dull thud resounded as Qin was sent flying, crashing heavily onto the ground, causing the bluestone ground to crack. The sudden and strange scene made all the elders of Little Rock Village suck in a breath of cold air. They looked at Nie Tian in disbelief, not knowing what was going on. You little brat, you. Qin struggled to stand up, but the moment he opened his mouth, he spat out a mouthful of blood. His face turned as white as a sheet, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. His strength was that of a late-stage mid-god, while Nie Tian was only an early-stage mid-god. Why was he sent flying by Nie Tian, even though he had attacked first? How could Nie Tian's strength be so terrifying? How could Qin know that Nie Tian hadn't used his full strength in that previous move? Otherwise, he wouldn't have had the chance to stand up again. Nie Tian did not kill him. After all, the other party was an elder of Little Rock Village. Even if he deserved to be killed, it was not his turn to do so. Once again witnessing Nie Tian's strength, Qin couldn't help but tremble. Is there anyone else who wants to kill me? Nie Tian coldly asked as his gaze swept across the elders. He didn't want to use force to suppress others, but these elders were too hateful. Not only did they not want him to stay in Little Rock Village, they even wanted to kill him. Nie Tian, was not a pushover. The dozen or so elders were aghast. They didn't even dare to raise their heads to look at Nie Tian. Nie Tian was too terrifying. He wasn't someone they could contend against. Father! At this moment, a thunderous voice suddenly sounded. Then, a tall and sturdy figure appeared, flashing to Qin's side and supporting him. Black Dragon Yun. Qin's gaze darkened when he saw the newcomer. This tall and sturdy figure was none other than Qin's son, Black Dragon Yun. Qin wanted the position of village chief, not for himself, but for Black Dragon Yun. As long as Qin became village chief, the next village chief would naturally be Black Dragon Yun. If that was the case, it would be nearly impossible for Qin's bloodline to rise again. Black Dragon. Qin's eyes lit up when he saw Black Dragon Yun appear. He pointed at Nie Tian and roared. It was this brat who injured your father. You dare injure my father. Black Dragon Yun frowned, his entire body releasing a berserk aura. He was the one who wanted to kill me. I was only forced to retaliate. Am I supposed to just stand there and let him kill me? Nie Tianling sneered and stepped forward, releasing his aura as well. Boom! The two auras collided, and a huge explosion resounded through the air. Nie Tian didn't move at all, but Black Dragon Yun retreated repeatedly. He almost couldn't stand and fell. Black Dragon Yun felt the blood in his body churn. He forcefully swallowed the foul blood that had reached his throat, and his eyes revealed deep fear. He was a peak middle god, but he was actually forced to vomit blood by Nie Tian's aura. This was too terrifying. It was just a simple clash of auras, but Black Dragon Yun already knew that he wasn't Nie Tian's match. What about me? Nie Tian faintly smiled, the corners of his mouth rising in a strange arc. Father, let's go. Black Dragon Yun's gaze was extremely gloomy, as if he was thinking about something. Finally, he roared and left with Qin. Qin and Black Dragon Yun left dejectedly. The other elders saw that the situation wasn't right and left one after another. Why provoke me? Nie Tian looked at the figures outside the great hall, the corners of his mouth curling up as he laughed inwardly. Originally, everyone could have gotten along peacefully, but Qin insisted on killing Nie Tian. In the end, he shot himself in the foot. Seeing Qin and the others leave, Qin couldn't help but bitterly smile and awkwardly say, Mr. Nie, I've made a fool of myself. Nie Tian was a smart person. How could he not see the conflict between Qin and Qin? He faintly smiled and said, "What are you saying, Elder Yin? I've caused trouble for you." For a mere village chief position, Yun Xing and Yun Xian were fighting against their own clansmen. It was truly regrettable. AI. Yun Xing let out a long sigh. He didn't blame Nie Tian at all. How could he not know that even without Nie Tian, Yun Xian and Yun Xian would eventually act? This was something that was bound to happen. In truth, he had long since grown tired of this village chief position. It was just that Yun Tian hadn't matured yet. If he gave up the position now, he was afraid that Yun Xian and Yun Xian wouldn't be able to tolerate Yun Tian. Yun Tian was the most talented person in Little Stone Village in hundreds of thousands of years. When he was born, he had attracted the five-color divine light of Stone Village's forbidden area. Mr. Nya, let's not talk about this for now. This old man will first arrange a place for you to stay. Yun Xing forced a smile and said to Nie Tian. Then, Yun Xing led Nie Tian and the others out of the hall. He was preparing to arrange a place for Nie Tian and the others to stay in his own house. Along the way, Nie Tian carefully sensed his surroundings, not letting go of a single spot. Nie Tian, look over there. At this time, the fat cat's voice suddenly resounded with great excitement. Nie Tian's gaze slightly froze. He looked into the distance. There was a dense forest there, and there was nothing unusual. Nie Tian opened his starry sky gaze, and at the same time, the holographic divine runes shrouded the area. The scene in his mind suddenly changed. In the dense forest, there was a faint five-colored halo that was dazzling and dazzling. Fat, what is that place? Nie Tian frowned and asked in confusion. Other than the five-colored halo, he didn't sense any other abnormalities. That is the entrance to the Nine Dragons' Earth Vein. Fat Cat smiled and said excitedly, "The entrance to the Earth Vein." Nie Tian's eyes slightly trembled as he exclaimed in his heart, "Mr. Niao, what's wrong?" Yun Xing couldn't help but ask when he saw Nie Tian's abnormal reaction. Nie Tian calmed down a little. He pointed at the dense forest and asked, "Elder Yun, what is that place?" Yun Xing's expression flickered as he looked in the direction Nie Tian was pointing at. Chapter 1559. Yun Xing's expression changed when she heard Nie Tian's sudden interest in the forbidden area of Little Rock Village, but she quickly recovered and smiled. "It's just a forest. There's nothing strange about it." Nie Tian's eyes narrowed. He had already caught Yun Xing's reaction, and the latter's attempt to hide it was too obvious. Oh, Nie Tian knew that Yun Xing was hiding something, but he didn't show it, and only smiled. After a while, Nie Tian's group arrived at an ordinary courtyard. The courtyard wasn't big, but there were a few simple rooms. It wouldn't be a problem for a few more people to live here. Nie Tian's group was arranged into their respective rooms. Nie Tian and Fat Cat discussed for a bit and decided to explore the forest after nightfall. Nie Tian didn't want to trouble Yun Xing anymore, so secretly exploring the forest was the best choice. With his strength, he shouldn't be discovered. The little guy is awake. In the room, Nie Tian couldn't help but smile as he held the little Jean 2 in his arms. Yeah, the little Jean 2 opened its golden eyes and stared at Nie Tian. It waved its claws as if hungry. Nie Tian randomly found something and carefully fed the little Jean Tuesday. After eating, the little guy obediently fell asleep. Fat, you said that the Jean 2 needs to devour a special thing to grow to its peak. What is it? Nie Tian asked with a frown. Fat Cat's figure flashed and appeared on Nie Tian's shoulder. Looking at the sleeping Jean 2, she shook her head and said, "The reason why the Jean 2 is ranked as one of the 4 great ancient beasts is because its blood contains the power of the golden flame. The power of the golden flame is extremely frightening and is close to the power of the source. Only by devouring pure gold flint can it activate the power of the golden flame in its blood. The blood of ordinary Jean 2 is red, but the blood of a Jean 2 that has activated the power of the golden flame is golden." At this point, Fat Cat couldn't help but smile bitterly. The power of the golden flame in this little Jean 2's blood is very dense and close to that of its ancestor. Unfortunately, the pure gold flint disappeared long ago. Even if it can awaken a small amount of the power of the golden flame, its battle prowess will only be at the 4th or 5th rank at most. What a pity. Crimson Gold Flint. Nietian made a mental note of the name after hearing the little fat cat's words. Perhaps he would have the chance to find it in the future. If he had one of the 4 great ancient ferocious beasts by his side, he would have incredible combat strength. Grandfather, I'm back. At this moment, a familiar voice rang out from outside the room. It was Yin Tian's voice. Following that, Yin Tian seemed to have noticed something and cried out, "Grandpa, you let them stay here?" Hearing Yin Tian's irritated tone, Niet Tian couldn't help but frown and walk out of the room. Yin Tian, Tian said. Yin Tian, Yin said. Tian smiled. Yin Yun's tone. Niet Tian smiled bitterly. This youth seemed to be quite hostile towards him. Yin Tian, go back to your room and do what you should be doing. Yin Qing walked over and glared at Yin Tian with a frown. Yes. Yin Tian's face froze, but he still went back to his room. This kid went to that forest. Just as Yin Tian turned around, Little Fat Cat let out a strange cry. Its expression changed slightly as it said, "No wonder he's so strong. Looks like his secret is hidden in that small forest." "What do you mean?" Nietian asked with a frown. Fat Cat chuckled and said, "This kid called Yin Tian must have absorbed the power of the Mother Earth Vital Vein. However, the Mother Earth Vital Vein has undergone a miraculous change in his body. It actually became a power similar to the power of the bloodline. Seems like we can only find out the truth after entering that forest." Nietian nodded. He looked forward to entering the forest even more. However, he didn't know that the forest was the forbidden area of Little Rock Village. Only a few people could enter. Others couldn't enter, and outsiders couldn't enter. After nightfall, everything fell into silence. Nietian sat in his room. Holographic divine prints spread out silently. After confirming that the others were cultivating or asleep, he stood up. He was prepared to enter the small forest alone and scout out the situation before doing anything else. Nietian walked out of his room. His aura was restrained to the extreme. A chaotic aura surged out from his body. He disappeared into the darkness. After a while, Nietian came to the outside of the forest. When he was a few hundred meters away from the forest, he felt a weak power of a formation. Nietian frowned and muttered to himself, "This forest is indeed not simple." The closer he got to the forest, the more intense the 5-colored halo in his eyes became. It was as if there was a 5-colored divine pool in the forest that was constantly releasing 5-colored light. Forbidden area. Nietian silently appeared outside the forest. Suddenly, he saw a small stone tablet with the words "Forbidden Area" written on it. "This is the Little Rock Village's forbidden area." Nietian's eyes focused, and a trace of surprise flashed across his face. He stopped and sensed the aura of the formation around him. His expression became more and more surprised. At this time, he discovered that the stone village's forbidden area was protected by a giant killing formation. If he didn't know the method to break the formation, one wrong step would lead to eternal damnation. "Let me study this killing formation." Fat Cat also discovered the killing formation. Its figure appeared, but it chuckled. Then, it released balls of colored glaze energy from its body and carefully tested the killing formation. Nietian saw the colored glaze energy surging in the killing formation, but he didn't trigger it. Every time, he could find a safe route. Fat's attainments and formations are really terrifying, Nietian said to himself in admiration. Now, he began to agree with Fat Cat's words. Bringing Fat Cat out of the colored glaze tower was the wisest decision he'd made in his life. After a while, the colored glaze energy found a safe route in the layers of killing formation. It was clearly displayed in front of Nietian. "Nietan, follow the directions of the colored glaze energy and you can enter the forest." Fat Cat wiped the sweat from its forehead and chuckled. "Okay," Nietian agreed. Then, he stepped forward and wanted to enter the forest. However, at this time, he suddenly discovered something and couldn't help but exclaim, "Fat, you grew a second tail?" Nyetian suddenly discovered that the little fat cat had actually changed from one tail to two at this time. It's all thanks to you. Fat cat chuckled. Then it moved and returned to the origin space. Nyetian laughed. He didn't quite understand Fat Cat's words. What did the latter growing a second tail have to do with him? He didn't know that Fat Cat only grew a second tail because it soaked in the ocean of demons and gods every day and crazily absorbed the power of the demons and gods. At this speed, Fat Cat would soon grow all 9 tails. By then, it would be a real chinchilla with 9 tails. Nyetian didn't think too much and stepped into the forest. Chapter 1560. In the forbidden area of Little Rock Village, a vague silhouette was carefully moving. This silhouette was none other than Nyetian. The multicolored light is getting stronger. After entering the forbidden area, Nyetian felt that the multicolored light was getting stronger, and he could feel the power contained in the light. It was very scary. Keep going. We will soon have an extraordinary harvest. Fat Cat seemed to have discovered something and laughed, unable to hide the excitement in her laughter. Nyetian felt the multicolored light and soon arrived outside a valley. This is it. Nyetian stopped outside the valley and immediately confirmed that the multicolored light was coming from the valley. The valley in front of him was very steep. Both sides were steep cliffs, and there was only a very narrow path that led into the valley. Go in. Fat Cat was very excited, and her figure appeared again, and her fat body entered the valley at an unbelievable speed. Seeing this, Nyetian quickly followed. After stepping into the valley, Nyetian was stunned by the scene in front of him. He was petrified on the spot, and his mouth was wide open, but no sound came out. Fat Cat also had the same reaction. Her 2 big eyes were wide open, and the shock in her heart was all expressed on her face. In the valley, a giant tree was floating in the air. Its branches were luxuriant, and the light was shining like a god standing in the air. This giant tree was thousands of meters tall, and its roots were like thousands of giant snakes dancing in the air. This tree was floating in the air. What was even more strange was that the giant tree was emitting multicolored light. Circle after circle, like ripples, filled the whole valley, and also dissipated out of the valley. How is this possible? Nyetian stared at the giant tree for a full 10 seconds, and finally reacted and said in surprise. He had seen the spirit ginseng of destiny in the chaotic abyss, and it also grew in the air. But the spirit ginseng had a spiritual root, and the root formed a spiritual formation, absorbing the spiritual energy of the heaven and earth. Although the roots of this giant tree were well developed, it did not form a god array, so it could not absorb the power of God. Then, what did it rely on to grow? Nyetian looked down. At this time, the fat cat also reacted. It let out a weird cry and pointed downwards. Nyetian was taken aback. He looked down and realized that this was not a valley, but a bottomless abyss. Nyetian looked down. The abyss was so deep that the bottom couldn't be seen. It released a strange power that made one's heart tremble. The abyss is releasing a powerful force. Nyetian sensed the aura of the abyss, and his expression changed. He immediately understood. The giant floating tree didn't actually need to actively absorb energy. It was the abyss below that was constantly releasing energy into the giant tree's body. The next moment, Nyetian suddenly thought of something, and his eyes couldn't help but tremble. He exclaimed in a shrill voice. Yes. The fat cat laughed and shouted excitedly. This abyss is the entrance to the 9 dragons' earth veins. Nyetian was stunned. He was so shocked that he couldn't speak. The 9 dragons' earth veins used the abyss as the entrance. The uncanny workmanship of nature was breathtaking. At this moment, Nyetian also understood why the power of God in Little Rock Village was so much denser than the outside world. It was because the abyss in front of him was constantly releasing Mother Earth energy. Nyetian, do you see the fruit on the tree? The fat cat suddenly smiled and pointed at the giant tree. That kid called Nyetian ate the fruit of this giant tree. That's why he became so strong. This tree, this fruit, it seems to be the 9 leaves Bodhi. Nie Tian looked at the giant tree and the small red fruit, frowning. The nine-leaved Bodhi was a type of tree that wasn't rare. Yes, it should be the nine-leaves Bodhi. The fat cat nodded and said, this nine-leaves Bodhi was originally an ordinary tree, but it appeared in an unusual place. After absorbing Mother Earth energy for years, it finally grew into a divine tree. Nie Tian laughed bitterly and couldn't help but nod. A normal nine-leaves Bodhi could only grow to a few hundred meters tall. 1,000 meters was the limit. The nine-leaves Bodhi in front of him was 5,000 to 6,000 meters tall, and its aura had completely changed. It had already surpassed the limits of the nine-leaves Bodhi. From this, it could be seen how important opportunity was. Nie Tian was able to grow to this stage not only because of his talent and perseverance, but also because of opportunity. Yun Tian's strength increased by leaps and bounds after eating the nine-leaves Bodhi fruit. And the nine-leaves Bodhi is only at the entrance of the nine dragons' earth veins, so the power it can absorb is limited. Based on this, if it enters the earth veins, it can absorb a terrifying amount of power. Nie Tian suddenly thought of this, and his eyes couldn't help but tremble. But when he glanced at the abyss below, he didn't dare to be sure what would appear in the abyss. After thinking for a while, Nie Tian decided to leave this place first. No matter what, this was the forbidden area of Little Stone Village. He decided to tell the truth to Yunqing. If the latter didn't want him to enter the earth veins, then he would think of another way. The fat cat also didn't want Nie Tian to take the risk and agreed to leave. Nie Tian didn't hesitate anymore. After leaving the abyss, he immediately walked out of the forest. When he entered the forest-killing formation, he suddenly heard the sounds of fighting. His expression darkened, and he sped up. He was worried that Yun Xian and Black Dragon had made a move against Yunqing. Brothers, kill them all. Just as he walked out of the forbidden area of Little Stone Village, Nie Tian heard violent sounds of fighting. Not far away, a group of black-clothed people were chasing after villagers. These black-clothed people weren't weak. Most of them were peak low gods, and many were mid-gods. The murderous aura of the black-clothed people was very heavy. Not only did they kill the strong men, they didn't even let the women and children go. Bastard! Seeing this scene, Nie Tian's expression darkened. The blood in his body surged, and the astral soul wings appeared on his back. His silhouette was like lightning as he rushed over. Although the black-clothed people were strong, in front of Nie Tian, they were like clay chickens and pottery dogs. They couldn't even withstand a single blow. Bang, bang, bang. After a series of muffled sounds, Nie Tian directly killed more than 10 black-clothed people and saved more than 10 villagers. His silhouette moved, and the astral soul wings swept up all the villagers and directly flew into the sky. In the blink of an eye, Nie Tian returned to his residence. His silhouette landed, and he placed the villagers in the courtyard. Mr. Nie, seeing Nie Tian return, Yunqing immediately cried out in fear. Old Yin, what's going on? Nie Tian's expression darkened, and he growled. The mountain bandits have attacked. Yunqing's old face was gloomy and full of grief. Mountain bandits? Nie Tian was stunned for a moment and said in a heavy voice, how is this possible? Little Stone Village was almost isolated from the world. Outside, there was a mountain cliff that was thousands of meters thick blocking the way. Not to mention the mountain bandits. Even an expert like Hua Jioshin wouldn't be able to attack. Traitor! In the next moment, Nie Tian immediately reacted. If the mountain bandits wanted to attack, there was definitely a traitor. Someone must have let the mountain bandits in. Yunqian, you're muddle-headed. Yunqing also understood at this time and wailed in grief. He felt as if his heart was being cut. Only he and Yunqian knew how to enter Little Stone Village, so it was self-evident who the traitor was. Chapter 1561. Seeing Yunqing's reaction, Nie Tian's eyes narrowed and his face darkened. Although he had only met Yunqian once, he could tell that Yunqian was a man of deep schemes. Yunqian had let the bandits into the village in order to obtain the position of village chief. This was a grave mistake. Yunqian and Yunqing's internal strife was one thing, but colluding with the bandits from the inside and outside was another matter altogether. Yun Xian's actions had undoubtedly dragged the peaceful little rock village into an abyss of no return. Kill! By this time, the bandits had arrived. From afar, there were hundreds of them. Each and every one of them was like a pack of hungry wolves, shouting and attacking. Along the way, many villagers' corpses were lying on the ground. Son of a bitch! Yin Tian roared and charged forward like a bolt of lightning. Yin Tian, Yin Qing couldn't help but cry out. He knew that Yin Tian was young and hot-tempered. If he charged forward like that, he would be in danger. Yin Tian's figure was like a bolt of lightning. Violent five-colored halos gushed out from his body and condensed into a long spear in his hand. It was his original soul. The rainbow pierces the sun. Boom! The spear pierced forward and a bandit's flesh and blood was torn to shreds. He didn't even have the time to scream. Brat, how dare you kill people of our Green Wolf Bastion? You're courting death. When the other bandits saw this, they all roared in anger and swarmed over. Countless attacks came crashing down on Yun Tian like a tsunami. Most of these bandits were at the peak of Low God realm. Yin Tian was only an early-stage Low God. Even though his combat strength was astonishing, he was still forced to retreat in the face of so many experts. Dying. Just when Yin Tian's silhouette was still in the air, a tyrannical voice suddenly rang out, after which a silhouette akin to a ferocious wolf dashed out and slammed a palm down. The boundless might of the palm was as vast as the mountains and as vast as the seas, causing Yin Tian to have difficulty breathing. The newcomer was a martial artist in green robes. There was a frightening scar on his face. His aura was as vast as the sea. He was a mid-god expert. Yin Tian, Yin Qing roared. Just as he was about to attack, he saw a flaming silhouette flashing across the sky. Then, a flaming sword whizzed out. Boom! The sword's shadows were like the wind, swift and fierce. In just an instant, the Scarface cultivator died a miserable death. Not even his bones were left. Even the divine sense in his godhead was directly erased by the soul-devouring sword intent. This person had the same level of strength as Nie Tian, but there was a world of difference in their battle prowess. It was impossible for him to block a single sword strike from Nie Tian. Retreat. Nie Tian's figure stood in midair. He looked at Yin Tian coldly and growled, I won't retreat. I'm going to kill them all. Yin Tian's eyes were bloodshot as he roared, swearing to kill all the bandits in front of him. Nie Tian's face sunk. Yin Tian was still too young and impulsive. This brat killed the 19th boss. Let's attack together and kill him. At this moment, the other bandits reacted. When they saw Nie Tian kill the scarred cultivator, they did not show any fear. Instead, their killing intent soared. These bandits were all valiant men. Their daily lives were spent licking blood from the edge of their blades, so they didn't know what fear was. Boom! 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 In the blink of an eye, dozens of martial artists attacked at the same time, and an endless barrage of attacks pressed down on Nie Tian. Aren't you afraid? Nie Tian sneered in the face of the joint attack of dozens of experts at the pinnacle of Low God stage. The corners of his mouth curled into a sinister smile as he said in a deep voice, Since you're not afraid, then die together. As the word die fell, the sword absolute heaven beheader suddenly pierced out. Blood chi and sword intent converged at the same time. The sword sealing forbidden array was activated. Sword runes surged in the air, releasing the most extreme killing intent. Sword dragon devours the world. The sword's edge streaked across the sky. The brilliance of the sword shot out tens of thousands of meters away. A violent sword dragon rumbled out and pressed down violently. Rumble! In the void, there was an explosion. Endless sounds of explosions were mixed with ghostly wails and wolf-like howls. The ground was directly torn apart. Several terrifying cracks appeared on the ground within 10,000 meters. Blood splattered in the air, adding a strong smell of blood to this restless night. Under one sword, dozens of cultivators died, tragically in an instant. This was the terrifying strength of Nie Tian. Wow! Yun Qing, who was watching from behind, couldn't help but take in a deep breath. Nie Tian's power was beyond his imagination. Yin Tian was also stunned. He didn't expect this silver-haired young man, who looked only a few years older than him, to be so terrifying. Nie Tian killed dozens of mountain bandits with one sword, but his face was as calm as still water. His figure moved and landed next to Yin Qing. He asked, "Elder Yin, what should we do next?" Yin Qing was in a dilemma. He was the village chief of Little Rock Village. His next decision would determine the survival of Little Rock Village. If they relied on Nie Tian's strength, there was some hope for the villagers to escape from Little Rock Village. But this would undoubtedly result in heavy casualties. Moreover, Yin Qing knew that there were several high-level deities in Green Wolf Stronghold. Their strength was so strong that even Nie Tian couldn't compete with them. There's only one way now. Yin Qing pondered. Suddenly, he frowned and said, "Go to the forbidden area." Finally, Yin Qing made the decision to bring the villagers into the forbidden area of Little Rock Village. Under normal circumstances, ordinary villagers were not allowed to enter the forbidden area. Only the geniuses recognized by the village chief and the elders had the right to enter. But now that the situation was critical, they couldn't care less. "Mr. Nye, do you remember the forest you asked me about?" Yin Qing turned to look at Nie Tian and asked. "I know." Nie Tian was very straightforward and said, "Follow me." Of course, Yin Qing didn't know that Nie Tian had already entered the forbidden area of Little Rock Village. He even saw the 9-leaf Bodhi above the abyss. "I'll charge in front. Chen Wuqing, you guard the back. Elder Yin and Elder Yang, you two are responsible for saving the villagers along the way. The others, guard the perimeter and protect the villagers." Nie Tian glanced around and said loudly. Among the people present, he was undoubtedly the strongest, followed by Chen Wuqing. Yin Qing and Yang Zhongxiu were also mid-level deities. The rest were Nie Qiu, Ed, and Yin Tian. They had 70 to 80 villagers with them, but only a few had fighting strength. The Green Wolf Stronghold's people were very cunning. They first killed the villagers who had fighting strength. So the people left in Little Rock Village were basically the old, the weak, the women, and the children. "Let's go," Nie Tian bellowed, gazing into the distance. Then, he blurred into action, leaving a trail of dust in his wake. "Stop them." Nie Tian and the others were a big target, especially the 70 to 80 villagers. In the eyes of the bandits, they were like sheep. Countless bandits rushed over from all directions, wanting to stop Nie Tian and the others. "Those who stop me die." Nie Tian faced the swarming bandits without a trace of fear in his eyes. There was only the most decisive killing intent. After a roar, he thrust it out with his sword. The sky was filled with sword images. The surging killing intent was fierce and cold. In the next moment, countless screams sounded. Dozens of bandits were sent flying. They either died or were heavily injured. Nie Tian's fighting strength was not something a group of bandits could compare to. Chapter 1562. On the high slope, a cold and murderous gaze locked onto Nie Tian. This person's face was gloomy and his eyes were cold. He was obviously a sinister person. He was none other than the third boss of Green Wolf Bastion, Zhao Yongji. Green Wolf Bastion had 3 high god experts, and Zhao Yongji was one of them. He was the one who personally commanded the attack on Little Rock Village. At this moment, there were 2 people standing next to Zhao Yongji, a middle-aged man and a gray-robed elder. They were Yun Xian and Black Dragon. Zhao Yongji's cold gaze locked onto Nie Tian, and he asked in a deep voice, "Yun Xian, who is this kid?" "Third boss. This kid was brought into the valley by Yun Qing." Yun Xian slightly bowed and said in a very respectful manner, "Third leader, you mustn't underestimate him. Although this youngster's strength is only at the early stage mid-god realm, his combat strength is very strange. This lowly one was injured by him." "Oh." Zhao Yongji creased his brows and smiled playfully. He said disdainfully, "He's just a mid-god. What can he do? With third boss here, even if this kid has heaven-defying abilities, he won't be able to do anything," Yun Xian said flatteringly. However, there was a hint of unconcealable fear in his eyes. He had personally experienced Nietian's abilities, so he was very afraid of the latter. He even had a feeling that Zhao Yongji might not be a match for Nietian. Of course, he didn't dare to say it out loud. Otherwise, Zhao Yongji would definitely kill him. In Little Rock Village, Nietian was charging at the front with incomparable savagery. He killed anyone who stood in his way. Wherever he went, the formation of the mountain bandits was immediately broken. Most of them died tragically under his sword, and those that slipped through the net immediately fled in fear. Along the way, more and more villagers were rescued. Soon, there were 500 to 600 people. Nietian gradually felt the pressure of having to protect so many people at the same time. Mr. Nietian, we must head for the forbidden area as soon as possible, Yun Qing's voice sounded, reminding Nietian. All right, Nietian nodded solemnly. In order to save more people, he deliberately took a detour. Otherwise, he would have been out of the forbidden area long ago. Nietian's figure was like a dragon, madly rushing towards the forbidden area. Third leader, this is bad. At this moment, Yun Xin couldn't help but frown when he saw Nietian's group running towards the forbidden area. What happened? Zhao Yongji's expression darkened. Nietian's battle prowess had exceeded his expectations. In the blink of an eye, he had killed more than 100 people from Green Wolf Bastion. Third leader, that side is the forbidden area of Little Rock Village. If we let Yun Qing bring the villagers into the forbidden area, then it will be terrible. Yun Xian said in a hurry, his forehead dripping with cold sweat. He did not expect that Yun Qing would actually bring the villagers into the forbidden area. Forbidden area? Zhao Yongji was stunned for a moment, then said, the 9-leaf Bodhi you mentioned is in the forbidden area, right? Yun Xian nodded heavily. The 9-leaf Bodhi was the reason why the Green Wolf Bastion attacked Little Rock Village. Yun Xian made a deal with the Green Wolf Bastion. The Green Wolf Bastion would help him become the village head, and he would let them enter the forbidden area of Little Rock Village and take away the 9-leaf Bodhi. However, the scene in front of him was beyond Yun Xian's expectations. He did not think that the people of Green Wolf Bastion would wantonly kill the villagers after entering the village. However, he still had hope in his heart. He hoped that some of the villagers would survive, and then the people of Green Wolf Bastion would leave with a 9-leaf Bodhi. Once he became the village head, he would no longer let the people of Green Wolf Bastion enter the village. After all, entering Little Rock Village was not that simple. Without Yun Xian, the people of Green Wolf Bastion would not have been able to enter Little Rock Village. Stinking brat. Do you think you can play tricks in front of me? Zhao Yongji frowned, then laughed coldly. His figure suddenly moved, and he stood tall in the air. His gaze swept across the ground, and he saw a child running away in panic. He waved his hand and grabbed the child in the air. The child looked to be about 6 or 7 years old. His body was suspended in the air, and he was being suppressed by a force. He immediately let out a miserable howl. Silver-haired brat, stop. Zhao Yongji's lips curled into a sinister smile, and he growled in a low voice. Nietian's figure stopped. He was about to reach the forbidden area. When he saw the child in the air, his eyes burned with anger, and the blood in his body was about to rush out. He knew that if he did not stop now, the child would die. But if he stopped, the bandits would swarm over. Chen Wuqing and the others alone would not be able to fight against so many bandits. Silver-haired brat, if you don't stop, this child will die. Seeing that Nietian's figure was still running, Zhao Yongji shouted in a low voice. He exerted a bit of force, and the child could not bear the pain and screamed miserably. The mournful screams echoed in the night sky, and it was extremely ear-piercing. Bastard! Nietian roared, and his figure shot up into the sky. He could not imagine that a person could be so shameless. A dignified high god actually used the life of a 5 to 6 year old child to threaten him. Brat, come at me. Zhao Yongji laughed and said in a cold tone, a mere mid-god. You can't even protect yourself, yet you want to save someone? What a joke. After speaking, Zhao Yongji exerted more force, wanting to torture the child to death. Bastard. Nietian suddenly sensed Zhao Yongji's action. He roared in anger, and his eyes turned bloodshot. His pupils violently trembled, and a terrifying spiritual pressure was released, forming a clear spatial fluctuation in the air. Absolute confinement was activated, and a terrifying spiritual pressure whizzed out, enveloping Qin Wentian. This is a spiritual pressure. Zhao Yongji instantly felt his divine sense being attacked, and he screamed in fear. He was unable to continue speaking, and his mind instantly fell into a daze. Succeeding in an instant, the astral wings on Nie Tian's back flapped, and he moved like the wind, saving the child. A soft energy gushed out from his palm, and the child fell to the ground. Yin Tian's silhouette flickered, and he caught the child. "Die for me." In the next instant, a cold light flashed in Nie Tian's eyes, and he slashed out with his sword, aiming to kill Zhao Yongji. After all, Zhao Yongji was a high god, and his reaction speed was extremely fast. At this moment, he had already awoken from the spiritual pressure. Facing Nie Tian's sword, Zhao Yongji struck out with his palm, but it was still a little too late. Boom! The sword's shadow flashed past, and the cold sword intent was incomparably sharp. One of Zhao Yongji's arms was directly chopped off, and fresh blood gushed out. "Ah, my arm!" Zhao Yongji screamed in pain, and his eyes were filled with incomparable terror. How could he have imagined that Nie Tian's strength was so strange? In such a short time, Nie Tian actually released a terrifying spiritual pressure, causing him to be momentarily dazed. What a pity! Nie Tian frowned when he saw the bloody scene, and he felt deep regret. Originally, he had the opportunity to instantly kill Zhao Yongji, but he chose to save Zhao Yongji first and missed the best opportunity. Although he had chopped off one of Zhao Yongji's arms, this kind of injury was nothing to a high god, and he would recover very quickly. "Smelly brat, I'm going to tear you apart." Zhao Yongji calmed down, and the blood gushing out from his arm stopped. A new arm actually began to grow out. Although he was enraged, he didn't attack. After losing an arm, his combat strength wasn't at its peak, and he didn't dare to attack recklessly. Chapter 1563. On the ground, dozens of bandits rushed towards the villagers. Chen Wuqing and the others attacked one after another, but they were too busy to stop all the bandits. In the blink of an eye, dozens of villagers were slaughtered, and blood dyed the ground red. A bunch of animals. Nie Tian was in midair, his blood energy surged, and the sword Absolute Heaven Slash came crashing down. The sword shadow was like a mountain, directly killing several bandits. These mountain bandits were simply inhumane, even wanting to kill defenseless villagers. Nie Tian's figure was extremely fast. After a few flashes, he killed dozens of bandits, and then his figure moved, madly running towards the forbidden area. Outside the forbidden area, Nie Tian's figure stopped. He jumped up and stood in midair, signaling everyone to stop. These villagers rarely entered the forbidden area. The forbidden area's killing array was very complicated, and it was very difficult to avoid it. Hovering in midair, Nie Tian saw that the bandits were still charging towards him. He slashed out with his heaven-severing sword. A sword shadow fell, leaving a deep fissure in the ground. This crack separated the bandits from the villagers. Anyone who crosses this line will be killed without mercy. Nie Tian roared. His voice was like thunder, resounding in the night sky, extremely intimidating. The hundreds of bandits' ears were like thunder, and they couldn't help but be stunned. Their figures suddenly stopped. They were actually intimidated. Nie Tian's eyes were gloomy, and his figure moved, landing beside Yun Qing, and asked, "Old Yun, there are so many villagers. How do we enter the forbidden area?" Yun Qing looked at the hundreds of villagers behind him, and his face couldn't help but turn ugly. Little Rock Village's forbidden area was protected by a killing array, and that killing array was an ancient killing array. It was basically impossible to break and could only be avoided according to a specific route. But these villagers didn't know how to avoid the killing array, so it was really difficult to enter the forbidden area. Even if Yun Qing told the villagers the route to enter the killing array, it would still take a long time. Yun Qing explained the situation, and with a face of embarrassment, he finally said, "Mr. Nya, if you want all these villagers to enter the forbidden area, it is impossible." Nya Tian frowned, and his face was very gloomy. At this time, he didn't need to hide anything, and directly shouted, "Fat! I understand." The little fat cat appeared on Nya Tian's shoulder and chuckled. Then, its figure flashed, heading towards the forbidden killing formation. Yin Xing was stunned. He didn't expect Nya Tian to have a spiritual pet that could talk. It wasn't strange that many people raised spiritual pets, but there weren't many spiritual pets that could speak. Fat Cat came to the outside of the forbidden area and released his chi, and immediately marked a path to the forbidden area. He had already memorized the route, so he was very clear. "Everyone listen up. Everyone follow the path that I have drawn and walk forward. No one is allowed to step out of the path, or you will be consigned to eternal damnation. Do you understand?" Little Fat Cat said in a loud voice, its voice unprecedentedly serious. "Chi bai fat by yun, it bai and chi of it, and yun of the ling and by yun and this." Yin Xing looked at the path marked by Fat Cat and couldn't help but be stunned. This was obviously the route to the forbidden area. How did Fat Cat know? But there was no time to think about this. The most important thing was to let the villagers enter the forbidden area as soon as possible. "Everyone listen, no matter what, do not walk out of the path. That will kill everyone." Yin Xing said loudly. His face was very serious. The villagers all nodded. They knew that this was the forbidden area of Little Rock Village, so of course they would be extra careful. In Little Rock Village, there were often people who violated the rules and wanted to enter the forbidden area, but they all ended up dead. "Yin Tian, you lead the way." Yin Xing nodded and said to Yin Tian. Yin Tian often entered the forbidden area, so it was best for him to lead the way. "Grandpa, I want to stay and protect the villagers." Yin Tian growled, as if he was unwilling. "Impudent! What time is this, and you still want to cause trouble? If you really want to protect the villagers, then lead the way." Yin Xing roared. At the moment of life and death, how could he allow Yin Tian to throw a tantrum? Seeing that Yin Xing was really angry, Yin Tian didn't say anything more, turned around, and walked towards the forbidden area. Under Yin Tian's lead, the villagers began to slowly enter the forbidden area. But the path was very narrow, only around 1 meter wide, and could only allow one person to safely pass through. The speed of entering the forbidden area was very slow. Hundreds of villagers. No one knew when all of them would enter. "A bunch of trash. What are you all still standing there for? Kill them for me." At this time, Zhao Yongji's figure appeared, and seeing that the bandits were watching from outside, not daring to go forward, he couldn't help but roar. At this time, his arm was about to recover, and he would soon be able to recover to his peak combat strength. The bandits reacted and immediately rushed towards the forbidden area. Upon seeing this, Nya Tian's figure moved, and the sword intent in his entire body suddenly erupted. An incomparably overbearing sword aura soared into the sky, and it condensed into a 3,000-meter long sword shadow in the air. The sword shadow surged with chaotic flames, and it emanated incomparably scorching, killing intent. So scary. Seeing this scene, the bandits couldn't help but tremble, and their eyes revealed intense fear. Boom! Crack! Nya Tian's face was as gloomy as water, and he slashed down with his sword. The instant the sword shadow landed on the ground sank violently, as though it was about to collapse. Boom! In the next moment, rolling sword waves whizzed out like raging waves, rolling and roaring. Those bandits nearby were directly swept up by the sword waves, and they were torn to shreds by the sword intent. The other bandits were also sent flying, and their injuries weren't light. The power of one sword shocked the entire scene. Nya Tian's eyes were cold and gloomy, and he said coldly, "It's still the same words, those who cross this line, kill without mercy." At this moment, his entire body was releasing violent killing intent, and the killing intent that seemed to materialize pervaded the air, as though he was a god of death looking down on everything. The eyes of the bandits trembled, and they actually involuntarily retreated. They weren't afraid of death, but Nye Tian was too powerful. Rushing over now was simply sending themselves to death. Trash. A bunch of trash. Seeing everyone retreating, Zhao Yongji couldn't help but curse angrily. Originally, he could have killed everyone in Little Rock Village and completely occupied the village, but he didn't expect that Nye Tian would suddenly appear and completely ruin his plan. The bandits were afraid of Nye Tian's terrifying combat strength and didn't dare to approach. Zhao Yongji's strength hadn't recovered yet, so he didn't dare to attack. For a moment, the situation was in a stalemate. Of course, Nye Tian was happy to see this stalemate, because the villagers were moving towards the forbidden area. Yun Xian, you shouldn't have done this. At this moment, Yun Qing stepped forward and looked coldly at Yun Xian and his son behind Zhao Yongji. He said sorrowfully, "For the position of village chief, you colluded with the Green Wolf Bastion to slaughter the villagers. These people are all your clansmen, people who have lived with you their entire lives. Yun Qing, you forced me to do this." Yun Xian also stepped forward, and his eyes flashed with violence as he said coldly, "If you had given up the position of village chief earlier, I wouldn't have had to do this. All of this is because you forced me to do this." Yun Xian was truly shameless. He was clearly the one in the wrong, but he still pushed the blame onto Yun Qing. It's just the position of village chief. Is it really that important? Yun Qing was heartbroken, and his eyes were filled with anger and confusion. Was it really worth it to betray one's own clansmen for a position? Of course it's important. Yun Xian replied coldly, and the corners of his lips curled into a sinister smile. If the position of village chief wasn't important, I wouldn't have killed Yin Luosheng. Luosheng. Hearing this name, Yun Qing's eyes sank and his expression changed. Yin Luosheng was his son, who died several years ago. Chapter 1564. Yun Xian. Outside the forbidden area, Yun Qing was enraged when he heard the truth about his son's tragic death from Yun Xian. With a roar, he soared into the sky. His aged figure struck out with his palm, sending a torrent of palm energy towards Yun Xian. Yun Xian had killed his son and was absolutely irreconcilable. Even though Yun Qing considered Yun Xian a clansman, how could he let go of this deep-seated hatred? Old fool, you're courting death. However, at the same time that Yun Qing jumped out, a ruthless voice sounded. Then, a tall and sturdy figure appeared in the air. Black qi surged around his body. His qi was like a terrifying dark cloud, surging violently. Yin Heilong. Nye Tian's expression darkened when he saw the figure in midair. Yin Heilong was a peak mid-god, and so was Yun Qing. However, Yun Qing seemed to have hidden injuries. His battle prowess was much weaker than Yun Heilong's. If the two were to clash head-on, Yun Qing would definitely be injured. Roar! However, at this moment, Yun Heilong had already made his move. He punched out. The black gas around his body instantly condensed into a giant black dragon. It roared furiously and pounced towards Yun Qing with bared fangs and brandished claws. Before the giant black dragon could reach him, Yun Qing's aura had already been crushed. His body swayed in midair, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Elder Yun. Nye Tian cried out in alarm when he saw this. His figure flashed, and he flew out. At the same time, he thrust his sword, wanting to block Yun Heilong's fatal blow for Yun Qing. Good chance. At the same time, Zhao Yongji suddenly sneered. His eyes were filled with intense, murderous intent. His arm had completely recovered, and his battle prowess was at its peak. Without any hesitation, he soared into the sky and struck out with his palm. A bizarre bone claw appeared in midair, releasing an ice-cold and sinister aura. Boom! The sinister bone claw suddenly descended, grabbing at Nye Tian. An ice-cold, murderous intent bloomed in the air. Nye Tian, be careful! Chun Wuqing cried out in alarm when he saw this. His eyes were trembling. Even though he was very confident in Nye Tian, the person who had attacked was a high god. Nye Tian struck out with his sword to block Yun Heilong's fatal attack. At the same time, his body trembled as he activated his Windbreaker High Heavens battle armor. Boom! In the next moment, there was a loud cracking sound as the sinister bone claw landed on the Fengji High Heavens battle armor. A glaring crack appeared on the armor before it instantly exploded and shattered. Yet Tion's body sank, and he was sent flying, crashing heavily into a boulder not far away. His entire body sank into the boulder, showing the strength of the impact. Mr. Nye Tion. Yun Xin couldn't help but exclaim when he saw Nye Tion. Nye Tion was the strongest person on their side. If he was killed or seriously injured, it would be terrible. Humph! Zhao Yongji stood proudly in midair and let out a sinister laugh. He said, "This lad only has the strength of an early-stage mid-god. If he takes a direct hit from my ghost wolf bone claw, he will definitely die." Zhao Yongji was an early-stage high god. One claw attack from him was enough to instantly kill a peak mid-god. Even a powerhouse like Yun Heilung would have no chance of survival if he were to take that blow. Impossible. Chun Wuqing's eyes trembled as he cried out in alarm. "Sir!" Big Brother Nye Tion, Nye Chio, and Ed also cried out in alarm at the same time. Is he really going to die? However, at this moment, a familiar voice sounded. The boulder shook and a figure leaped out, standing proudly in midair. His eyes were sharp and murderous. This! Zhao Yongji stared at the figure in midair. His eyes trembled violently, and his expression changed. He was dumbfounded. Clearly, he couldn't believe what he was seeing. At this moment, not only was Nye Tion not dead, he wasn't even seriously injured. He was in perfect condition. How is this possible? Zhao Yongji's eyes flickered. Nye Tion's appearance had overturned his understanding of martial arts time and time again. The first time, he had almost killed him. The second time, he was completely dumbfounded. "I'm fine." Nye Tion stabilized his body, looked at the crowd below, and smiled faintly. Although he looked calm and determined on the surface, he was very worried in his heart. After a series of battles, his divine energy was almost depleted. The energy in his demonic yuan was about to dry up. His spirit was also very tired. Who are you?" Zhao Yongji calmed down slightly and asked in a trembling voice. "Humph!" Nye Tion's eyes were cold and disdainful. He sneered and said coldly, "You don't deserve to know my name." Zhao Yongji had previously threatened Nye Tion with the life of a child. Nye Tion despised people like him the most. "Stinking brat, you are courting death." Zhao Yongji roared furiously. He then turned to the people behind him and said furiously, "Everyone, listen up. Kill him." The people of Green Wolf Bastion looked at Zhao Yongji with trembling eyes. They were extremely frightened. They were too afraid of Nye Tion and did not dare to step forward. "A bunch of trash." Zhao Yongji was furious. He said loudly, "I will block this brat. You all kill him." After saying that, Zhao Yongji moved and pressured Nye Tion. He knew that Nye Tion's strength was strange, but with his strength, even if he could not kill Nye Tion, it was more than enough to hold him back. Nye Tion frowned. He was most worried about the situation in front of him. After all, Zhao Yongji was a high god expert. Once he was held back, Chun Wuqing and the rest would not be able to stop so many bandits. Boom! However, at this time, Zhao Yongji's palm had already slammed down. The sinister bone claw flashed coldly in the night sky, as if it was going to tear the world apart. Astral soul armor. Nye Tion roared and moved his body. Endless astral energy surged out and condensed into a huge armor around him. He was like an indomitable giant, indestructible. Boom! The ghost wolf's bone claw landed and bombarded the astral soul armor. There was a loud sound in the air, but Nye Tion's body was like a mountain and did not move at all. Kill! On the other side, the bandits rushed over from other directions and attacked the villagers. Chun Wuqing was held back by Yun Heilung and was in a fierce battle. Yun Xing and Yun Xian were fighting fiercely. Yang Zhongxiu, Nye Chio, Ed, and the rest could only barely protect themselves. In the next moment, screams rang out. Some of the villagers who were crowded around the periphery were mercilessly slaughtered. How could flesh and blood withstand the iron hooves of tigers and wolves? B****. Nye Tian saw this scene and roared. His blood and chi surged. Without hesitation, he activated the Starry River Sky restriction, and an invisible barrier enveloped everyone. Zhao Yongji seemed to have sensed something. His eyes darkened slightly as he exclaimed in surprise. At this time, Nye Tian's figure moved. His speed was so fast that a shadow of him appeared in the air. In an instant, countless sharp sword shadows appeared in the Starry River Sky restriction. Suddenly, there were cries and howls. Everywhere the sword shadows passed, there was blood. It was a glaring sight. In the blink of an eye, Nye Tian killed dozens of bandits, intimidating everyone and forcing the bandits to retreat. What a strange boy! Zhao Yongji saw Nye Tian's attack and was shocked and frightened. His eyes were filled with fear. His heart sank, and he said, "This boy must not be allowed to live." Chapter 1565. Up in the air, Zhao Yongji saw Nye Tian's bravery and killing intent surge in his heart. Behind him, a phantom of a wolf appeared. It was thousands of meters long, and its eyes flickered with a cold light. A sharp killing intent permeated the air. Everyone could feel the killing intent. Their gazes trembled as they involuntarily stared at the sky. Nye Tian abruptly turned around and stared at the gigantic phantom of the wolf. His eyes couldn't help but tremble. It seemed like this time, Zhao Yongji was going to go all out. "Brat, I admit that you are very strong. Unfortunately, you met me." Zhao Yongji's gaze was like a wolf's as he stared fixedly at Nye Tian. "Everything shall end here. Is that so?" Nye Tianling coldly replied. There wasn't fear in his eyes, but a strong killing intent and battle intent. Under normal circumstances, he naturally wouldn't fight head-on with Zhao Yongji. But now, within the forbidden space of the Astral River, Nye Tian was confident that he could kill Zhao Yongji in a single move. Seeing that Zhao Yongji and Nye Tian were about to have a life-and-death battle, everyone involuntarily retreated. Zhao Yongji looked at Nye Tian and couldn't help but frown. He could faintly sense that something was wrong, but since he had already reached this step, he absolutely couldn't give up. "Brat, die!" With a roar, Zhao Yongji's body moved. The gigantic wolf behind him suddenly pounced out like a ball of black flames, pressing down on Nye Tian. Sky-devouring blood. Nye Tian's silhouette hovered in the air. The sword intent and blood chi around him surged unceasingly. Once again, he unleashed the forbidden technique. A blood-colored sword shadow appeared in the air. Outside the sword shadow, the primal chaos flame and the astral soul flame appeared at the same time. The two different types of flames actually fused together perfectly, burning fiercely and illuminating half the night sky. Kill. The killing intent in Nye Tian's heart had already been set. With a low roar, he slashed out with his sword. The blood-colored sword shadow roared, resembling a gigantic dragon, twisting and turning in the air. In an instant, the space was filled with sword will and was pulled tight. Waves of terrifying power surged out violently. What a terrifying sword strike! Upon seeing Nye Tian's aura, the onlookers couldn't help but gasp, their eyes trembling. No one had expected Nye Tian to be able to release such a terrifying power. Zhao Yongji was also stunned for a moment. Nye Tian's strength had once again exceeded his expectations. But at this moment, he had no way out and could only fight with his life on the line. Boom! Crack, crack, crack. A loud sound rang out as the spirit wolf shadow and the blood-red sword shadow finally collided. The void shook violently for a moment, and then an ear-piercing explosion sound rang out. An endless amount of power wreaked havoc, and even the heavens and earth were shaking. Blood chi, sword intent, sword light, wolf shadow, black berserk power, endless power mixed together, causing the void to become chaotic. The crowd stared at the sky with burning eyes. They could no longer see the figures of Nye Tian and Zhao Yongji. Bang! At this moment, a loud explosion sounded. The giant spirit wolf couldn't withstand the pressure of the sword intent and directly collapsed. No! Suddenly, Zhao Yongji sensed that something was wrong. He screamed, but it was too late. The murderous sword shadow pressed over like a stormy sea, directly drowning Zhao Yongji's figure, leaving only a bloody light. The third leader of the Green Wolf Bastion, a dignified superior deity, died tragically. Not even his bones were left. After a long time, the chaotic void became clear, and a figure appeared in midair. It was Nie Tian. With the support of the Forbidden Galaxy Flight, Nie Tian killed Zhao Yongji with one sword. This was the third superior deity martial artist he had killed. At this moment, Nie Tian's whole body was trembling, and blood was gushing out. He was already lacking in strength. Activating the Forbidden Galaxy Flight had already reached its limit. Using the forbidden move of the Proud Sword incantation consumed his physical strength to the extreme. After killing Zhao Yongji, Nie Tian also suffered heavy injuries. At this moment, he was close to the limit of his martial body. Nie Tian. Chen Wuqing saw that Nie Tian was still holding on, and his eyes trembled as he shouted. Nie Tian didn't respond. His cold eyes stared at everyone below, and he roared, "Scram! Scram! Scram! Scram!" A ferocious roar reverberated in the void, domineering and fierce. Everyone heard the thunderous sound in their ears. Their eyes trembled, and they began to involuntarily retreat. Nie Tian was too terrifying. He wasn't someone they could contend with at all. "Don't go. He's already at his limit. He can't hold on any longer." At this time, a cold voice sounded. Yun Xian seemed to be shouting crazily. He could see that Nie Tian was already an arrow at the end of its flight and couldn't hold on any longer. Unfortunately, the people of the Green Wolf Bastion didn't listen and fled in all directions. The bandits were scared away. Only Yun Xian, Black Dragon, and a few elders of Little Rock Village were left. "Yun Xian, you're the only ones left." Nie Tianling smiled coldly. His figure moved, and he descended slightly. He stared at Yun Xian and the others with bloodthirsty eyes as he spoke sinisterly. "Stinking brat, you've already used up all your strength. Do you still want to show off?" Yun Xian forced himself to calm down and spoke in a low voice. He then looked at the others. However, the eyes of the elders in name behind him trembled, and they couldn't help but walk over to Nie Tian. The people of the Green Wolf Bastion had entered Little Rock Village and slaughtered the villagers. This wasn't something these elders wanted to see. They had been deceived by Yun Xian and had no choice but to stand on his side. Right now, Yun Xian was weak, so they naturally wanted to stand on Yun Qing's side. "You guys, what are you doing?" Yun Xian couldn't help but roar when he saw the people beside him leave. He was about to go crazy. "Father, we don't need them. The two of us are enough." At this time, Yun Xian suddenly walked over and stared at Nie Tian and the others with murderous eyes. He was extremely violent. "Black Dragon, could it be that you want to—" Yun Xian suddenly realized something. His expression changed, and even his voice became shrill. Nie Tian frowned and used his divine sense to probe. He could faintly sense an extremely terrifying power surging within Yun Xian's body. His heart couldn't help but sink. Could it be that he still has a terrifying trump card? Boom! At this time, Yun Xian's entire body suddenly released a terrifying aura, following which black runes began to appear around his body. It was extremely strange. Nie Tian frowned. He suddenly discovered that the black runes contained an extremely terrifying power. When he probed it, he actually felt a bone-chilling sensation. "This is—" Yun Qing seemed to have realized something at this time. His expression changed, and he exclaimed in a low voice, "Yun Xian, you've actually cultivated a forbidden technique." "Forbidden technique?" Nie Tian frowned. He didn't know what Yun Qing meant by forbidden technique. "So what?" Yun Xian snickered, and his aura became more and more intense. The black runes began to surge, turning into something like a tattoo. It imprinted itself on Yun Xian's body, forming a layer of black scale armor. "Village Chief, what I cultivate is one of the 3 forbidden techniques of our Yun family, the Dragon Inscription Talisman." Yun Xian stared at Yun Qing with a murderous gaze and said coldly, "Let me tell you, your son, Yin Luosheng, died to my Dragon Inscription Talisman." "Yun Xian, you—" Yunqing was so furious that his blood surged. His body actually trembled, and he vomited another mouthful of blood. At this moment, he finally understood why Yun Xian and his son were able to kill Yin Luosheng. Why had Yun Xian's strength increased so quickly in just a few years? So, it was because Yun Xian cultivated a forbidden technique. The Yin family had 3 great forbidden techniques. The rules of the family stated that only overgods could cultivate them, and they could only cultivate one. Chapter 1566. Yin Qing was infuriated. How could he have imagined that his son would die to the Yun family's forbidden technique? He did not know what kind of power the Dragonmar talisman could bring to a martial artist, but the aura that Heilung Yun displayed had far exceeded that of a peak mid-god. It was even more terrifying than that of high god Zhao Yongji. Nie Tian looked at Heilung Yun and couldn't help but crease his brows. He could sense that an extremely terrifying energy was surging within Heilung Yun's body. This energy was hidden deep within his blood. It had a strong stimulating effect on the martial body, but at the same time, it was also extremely destructive to the martial body. As Heilung Yun cultivated the Dragonmar talisman, he must have been suffering from the backlash of the talisman's power at all times. His lifespan was at least half or more than that of a martial artist at the same level. The aura around Heilung Yun was surging violently and vaguely reached the strength of a mid-stage or even late-stage high god. This is bad. Nie Tian creased his brows and sensed his body's condition. His heart sank. After killing Zhao Yongji, he had nearly exhausted all of his energy. He was barely hanging on by a thread. At this moment, it would be extremely difficult for him to even defeat an ordinary mid-god, let alone a late-stage high god. Yin Qing, all of you prepare to die. Heilung Yun's furious roar sounded. Terrifying black dragon patterns surged around his body. His terrifying aura swept across the world. The activation of the Dragonmark talisman allowed Heilung Yun's strength to temporarily break through the limits of his martial body and reach mid-stage high god. In addition, the talisman's power stimulated his martial body. His current combat strength was comparable to a late-stage high god. Stinking brat, I'll kill you first. Black Cloud Dragon glared at Nie Tian, his eyes filled with killing intent. Among those present, the person he hated the most and feared the most was Nie Tian. If not for Nie Tian's sudden appearance, he and his father would have taken control of Little Rock Village. Moreover, he was most apprehensive about Nie Tian's strength. Therefore, he wanted to kill Nie Tian first. Die! The Black Cloud Dragon roared, and its aura surged. Countless black dragon marks gathered in the sky, and a black force roared out, pressing down on the inner sky. The Black Berserker power was like a giant dragon coming out of the abyss. Its imposing manner was vast and cold, and its dense killing intent was undoubtedly revealed. With one strike, Black Cloud Dragon had to kill Nie Tian. Nie Tian took a deep breath, and his eyes instantly became resolute. Even if he was already an arrow at the end of its flight, he would never stretch his neck and wait for death. Kill! Nie Tian let out a low roar. Blood chi surged from all over his body, and the sword intent around him was released once again. Endless blood chi and sword intent mixed together, creating a heroic and shocking scene. This time, he gave it his all without hesitation. Boom! In the void, a blood-red sword shadow appeared and suddenly pressed down, causing the void to tremble. Boom! With a loud explosion, the two extreme forces collided, causing the heavens and earth to shake and the void to tremble. Shockwaves rolled out in all directions. Bang! In the blink of an eye, Nie Tian felt a violent force descend upon him. With a muffled sound, his figure was directly sent flying, leaving a trail of blood in the air. Nie Tian. Everyone's eyes froze as they cried out in shock. Under countless gazes, Nie Tian's figure heavily smashed into a giant tree, and the giant tree that was several meters thick snapped. The moment Nie Tian's figure landed on the ground, his entire body was covered in blood, and his flesh was a bloody mess. Mr. Nie. When Yun Qing saw this, his eyes trembled, and tears streamed down his face. Nietion was an outsider. He originally had the chance to leave Little Rock Village, but he had stayed in order to save the villagers. "Is this your strength?" Black Cloud Dragon took a step forward and laughed wildly. "You can't even withstand a single blow." As he spoke, Black Cloud Dragon's figure moved, and he actually crazily attacked Nietion. At the same time, more than a dozen villagers of Little Rock Village appeared and blocked Black Cloud Dragon. They said in unison, "Black Cloud Dragon, stop! Scram!" Black Cloud Dragon roared angrily. With a wave of his hand, he directly slapped a villager to death. Black Cloud Dragon was extremely ruthless. He actually killed even his own clansmen. "Black Cloud Dragon, you even want to kill your own clansmen?" Yun Qing was enraged, and his eyes trembled violently as he roared, "I will kill anyone who dares to stop me." Black Cloud Dragon took a step forward, and the aura around him directly sent more than a dozen villagers flying. Those dozen figures were still in the air when they turned into a bloody light, and not even their bones remained. At this moment, Nietion's figure stood up again. His entire body was bathed in blood, and his appearance could no longer be seen. Black Cloud Dragon's Dragon Mark talisman was too powerful, and Nietion had already reached his limit and could no longer fight. "Stinking brat, you still dare to stand up? I will tear you apart." When Black Cloud Dragon saw that Nietion actually stood up, he couldn't help but fly into a rage. With a roar, he leaped high into the air and slapped down with his palm. The black dragon marks actually condensed into a black dragon that surged towards Nietion. "You're not allowed to hurt him." At this moment, Chun Wuqing's figure appeared. His figure moved, and his dark dust spear shot out, stabbing towards Black Cloud Dragon. At the same time, Nietzsche, Ed, Yang Zhongxiu, and Yun Qing also attacked Black Cloud Dragon. However, Black Cloud Dragon only sneered. He casually waved his other hand, and a black wave of air surged out, directly sending Chun Wuqing and the others flying. In the next instant, the huge black dragon with heavy killing intent swooped down, violently attacking Nietion. "Die, die!" At this moment, Black Cloud Dragon let out a maniacal laugh. His entire person seemed to have gone mad, and he seemed to have seen the scene of Nietion being killed. High God Sword formation, open. At the last moment, Nietion relied on his remaining trace of strength to stimulate the berserk blood chi in his body, once again activating the High God Sword formation. Sword formation runes frantically surged in the air, releasing waves of extremely frightening energy. Boom! The sword formation runes condensed, and sword images soared into the sky. An unyielding battle intent blossomed at this moment. Kaboom! In the next instant, the huge black dragon and the blood-colored sword images collided. With a loud bang, the sword images were unable to withstand the huge black dragon and directly exploded. Nietion had already used all his strength, but even if he possessed the most unyielding battle intent, he couldn't make up for the difference in strength. After all, Black Cloud Dragon had already broken through to the mid-stage High God realm, and the power of the Dragon Mar Talisman was far greater than ordinary power. It was simply impossible for Nietion, who was at the end of his tether, to fight against Black Cloud Dragon, who was at the peak of his power. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. In the void, Boundless Sword Intent exploded and attacked the huge black dragon, exploding with ear-piercing sounds. At the same time, the dragon marks on the black dragon's body were actually torn down, turning into balls of runes that circulated in the air. The black dragon marks surged and directly entered Nietion's body. Immediately, an intense pain, as if his body was being torn apart, assaulted his entire body. Nietion couldn't help but let out a blood-curdling scream, and his entire face became distorted. Seeing this scene, Black Cloud Dragon actually let out hysterical laughter and loudly said, "Stinking brat, I'll let you have a taste of the backlash of the Dragon Mark Talisman." Chapter 1567. The reason why the Dragon Inscription Talisman was listed as one of the Yun family's 3 great forbidden techniques was that it possessed an extremely terrifying backlash. Black Cloud Dragon cultivated the Dragon Mark Forbidden Talisman. While its strength was rapidly increasing, it was also constantly enduring the backlash of the talisman. He endured such immense pain for the sake of becoming Little Stone Village's village chief one day. However, all of this was destroyed by Nyetian. How could he not hate Nyetian? The reason why the father and son duo wanted to become village chief was actually because of another reason: the 3 great forbidden techniques and the Yun family secret. Yun Xian was the first elder of Little Stone Village's Council of Elders. He unintentionally learned that the Yun family was actually a family that had existed since ancient times. Later on, due to certain reasons, they came here and became a hidden family. In ancient times, the Yun family was once an abnormally powerful family, relying on the 3 great forbidden techniques. Of the Yun family's 3 great forbidden techniques, the Dragon Inscription Talisman that he cultivated was only the weakest. The other 2 were even more terrifying. However, the Yun family's rules stipulated that only overgod-level martial artists could cultivate the forbidden techniques. It was precisely because of this rule that the Yun family declined again and again until it became an ordinary village. Black Dragon Yun wanted to become village chief precisely to obtain the 3 great forbidden techniques. At the same time, he also wanted to understand the Yun family's hidden secret. In order to achieve his goal, he did not care about anything. Even if he had to ally with the Green Wolf stronghold, even if he had to slaughter his own clansmen, he would not hesitate. Currently, Black Dragon Yin wanted to let Nyetian have a taste of the backlash of the Dragon Inscription Talisman. He wanted to use the Dragon Inscription Talisman's backlash to torture Nyetian to death. Even more dragon inscriptions surged into his body. Nyetian felt like there were thousands of insects gnawing away at his body. His body and soul were slowly being eaten away. This feeling was simply despairing. The life force in his body was rapidly disappearing uncontrollably. Nyetian. Chen Wuqing could not help but cry out when he saw Nyetian enduring immense pain. However, he was currently also heavily injured. Even standing up was difficult. The others could not do anything. They could only watch helplessly. Yin Heilong, have you gone mad? Not far away, several Stone Village elders couldn't bear to watch any longer and couldn't help but shout. A bunch of fence-sitters die. Black Dragon Yin abruptly turned around and looked at those elders. With a cold laugh, he directly sent out a palm strike. A black berserk force whizzed out, and those elders did not even have the time to scream before they died instantly. Black Dragon Yin had gone mad, daring to kill anyone. Brat, aren't you going to die? At this moment, when Black Cloud Dragon saw that Nyetian was still alive, it couldn't help but sneer coldly. Then it released even more berserk black dragon tattoos that surged into Nyetian's body. However, at this moment, Nyetian did not scream again. Instead, he became calm. What's going on? Black Cloud Dragon frowned, not knowing what was going on. Black Dragon, this brat is too strange. It's better to kill him directly. Yun Xian, who had been watching the battle all this time, couldn't help but shout, Black Dragon, this kid is too strange. It's better to kill him directly. Black Dragon Yin was also afraid that something unexpected would happen. After nodding his head, a black vortex surged out of his palm, and he sent out a palm strike at Nyetian. At this moment, Nyetian seemed to have fainted and did not have any reaction at all. If this palm strike landed, his martial body would not be able to withstand it. The black palm force roared and ferociously pressed down, but Nyetian still did not have any reaction. However, just as the fatal palm strike was about to land on his body, a strange scene suddenly occurred. Boom! Nyetian's body suddenly trembled, and a mysterious force surged out. It was actually a transparent layer of water that enveloped Nyetian. This layer of water looked very fragile, but gave off an extremely mysterious feeling, as if it contained an endless amount of energy. If one looked carefully, the shape of the water layer was very strange. It was actually the shape of a teardrop. Tear! That's right. The water layer that had appeared around Nyetian was the tear that Cher had shed when she left. The tear of a princess. Boom! In the next moment, the violent palm strike landed on the tear of a princess, but it was like a clay ox entering the sea. There was no reaction at all. The protective power of the tear of a princess was extremely terrifying. Unless Black Dragon Yun was an overgod, it was impossible for him to break through the tear of a princess. At the same time, an extremely strange change occurred within Yetian's body. The black dragon inscriptions surged into his body, and after wreaking havoc for a while, they actually slowly calmed down. Then, they began to fuse with his dragon vein, turning into inscriptions that were branded onto the dragon vein. Nietian had actually directly absorbed and fused with the dragon inscription talisman. At the same time, Nietian felt that the tear of a princess had fused with his body, as if it had fused with his blood. It caused extremely profound changes to his blood. The tear of a princess fused with his blood and gradually disappeared. The layer of water around Nietian's body also slowly weakened. However, his strength was also rapidly recovering. His presence could not be stopped from becoming stronger and stronger. Black Dragon Yin suddenly sensed that Nietian's presence was rapidly growing stronger. He could not help but frown, and his face was filled with shock and fear. He said in shock, "How is this possible?" Nietian was clearly at the end of his tether, and he had basically used up all of his energy. How could he suddenly recover? And what was that layer of water around his body? Just who is this brat? Black Dragon Yun's expression was extremely ugly. Undisguisable panic appeared in his eyes. Nietian was far too terrifying. He was actually still alive under these circumstances, and his strength was miraculously recovering. Black Dragon, kill him! Kill him! Yin Xian also sensed that something was wrong. He roared out, and he was about to go crazy. He could feel that Nietian's strength was recovering and becoming stronger. If Nietian really recovered to his peak, then Black Dragon Yin might not be his match. Stinking brat, I don't care who you are. I will definitely kill you today. Black Dragon Yin immediately calmed down. He let out a deep roar, and his entire body surged with a ruthless and bloodthirsty aura. Boom! With a punch, Black Dragon Yun gathered all the strength in his body. The dragon inscription talisman surged out, and the black dragon appeared again. It crazily attacked Nietian. Kaboom! The black dragon smashed into the tear of a princess. There was a loud explosion, and a crack actually appeared on the membrane of the tear of a princess. Because the tear of a princess was slowly fusing with Nietian's blood, the protective power was also becoming weaker and weaker. It was gradually unable to resist Black Dragon Yun's attacks. PFFF. Finally, the tear of a princess could no longer hold on. It turned into a ball of water and disappeared. At this moment, Nietian's tightly closed eyes suddenly opened. His eyes were like the sun and moon, releasing a sharp light. When Black Dragon Yin saw that Nietian had suddenly woken up and sensed that the latter's aura had actually recovered to its peak, his eyes couldn't help but tremble. He was momentarily speechless. Chapter 1568. When Nietian woke up again, he felt that his body had completely recovered. At the same time, his strength had also increased. More importantly, he discovered that his fiend god power had awakened again. From 2 strands of fiend god power, he now had 4 strands of fiend god power. The awakening of the fiend god power had caused Nietian's combat strength to have a qualitative leap. There was another strange thing. His dragon veins had actually fused with the power of the Dragon Mark Talisman. The 9 dragon veins were branded with the Dragon Mark Talisman and appeared extremely strange. Arrogant. Black Dragon Yin looked at the sinister smile on Nietian's face and forced himself to calm down. He growled in a low voice. Although Nietian's strength had recovered and his aura had increased, Black Dragon Yin believed that Nietian was still not his match. One had to know that his current combat strength was comparable to a late-stage high god. Nietian was only an early-stage mid-god. How could he fight him? At this time, when the others saw that Nietian's strength had suddenly recovered and even become stronger, they were all dumbfounded. Their eyes were trembling, and they had no idea what was going on. In their hearts, Nyetian was becoming more and more terrifying. Nyetian had said that he would kill Black Dragon Yun in one move. Did he really have that strength? Boom! At this moment, Nyetian didn't speak anymore. His body trembled, and clusters of black talisman symbols surged out from his body. They surged around his body, and he seemed extremely terrifying. His entire body seemed to have instantly become an abyss that emitted extreme coldness and profoundness. This is... Black Dragon Yun's eyes trembled again when he saw this scene. He simply couldn't believe his eyes. Nyetian was actually using the power of the Dragon Mark Talisman. Nyetian could also use the Dragon Mark Talisman. You absorb my Dragon Mark Talisman. In the next moment, Black Dragon Yun immediately reacted and exclaimed. His voice became incomparably sharp and ear-piercing. He had never imagined that the Dragon Mark Talisman he had used to torture Nyetian would actually be absorbed by the latter. In order to cultivate the Dragon Mark Talisman, Black Dragon Yun had endured who knew how much pain to achieve his current accomplishments. Nyetian actually grasped the Dragon Mark Forbidden Talisman in the blink of an eye. This is too terrifying. Is this lad a human or a ghost? Yinxian was dumbfounded as well. He was already a loss for words. Yinxian's mouth was wide open, but he couldn't say a single word. What was hidden in Nyetian's body for him to be able to directly absorb the Dragon Mark Forbidden Talisman? If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he would have found it hard to believe that there was such a terrifying person in the world. The power of the Dragon Mark Talisman is pretty good. I could try it on you. Nyetian smiled faintly. His eyes were filled with extreme contempt. You're courting death. The Black Cloud Dragon was infuriated that its power had been absorbed by someone else and was now being tested on its body. It roared and released all of the dragon inscription talismans around its body. The terrifying talismans circulated in the air, releasing a terrifying power. This time, Black Dragon Yin was going to use all his strength. He had to thoroughly exterminate Nyetian. If he had known that Nyetian was so terrifying, Black Dragon Yin definitely wouldn't have used the Dragon Mark Talisman on Nyetian's body. Unfortunately, it was too late to say anything now. Very good. Nyetian looked at Black Dragon Yin. There was no fear in his eyes. Instead, there was a strong desire to fight. Die! Black Dragon Yin felt the contempt in Nyetian's eyes and was instantly enraged. With a roar, all of the power in its body condensed. A 3,000-meter-long black dragon appeared in the air. It roared and its aura shook the heavens. This was Black Dragon Yun's most terrifying attack. It had already used all of its power. Is this all you've got? Facing Black Dragon Yun's all-out attack, the corner of Nyetian's mouth curled up slightly. His eyes were cold and murderous. His expression was so calm that it made people's hair stand on end. Boom! In an instant, the 9 yuan meridians in Nyetian's body revolved to the extreme. Then he slapped out with his palm. A black dragon also appeared in the air. It was actually also condensed from the Dragon Mark Talisman. However, the black dragon that Nyetian condensed was much smaller than Black Dragon Yun's. Brat, you want to use my power to defeat me? Dream on. Black Dragon Yin sneered when he saw this. He was certain that Nyetian was no match for him. Is that so? Suddenly, Nyetian sneered. Then he raised both his hands. For streams of black, evil power appeared. They were like 4 black snakes. They whizzed out and actually fused with his black dragon. Roar! In an instant, the black dragon roared to the sky. Then, its body doubled in size, and its aura increased by several times. Waves after waves of extremely violent dragon chi were released, filling the air. It was as though the entire world was about to be torn apart. The sudden scene caught Black Dragon Yin off guard. His eyes trembled violently, and he was extremely frightened. He had never imagined that there would be such a terrifying evil power hidden in Nyetian's body. Boom! In the next moment, the 2 dragons collided. The air exploded violently, and countless Dragon Mark talismans were torn apart, wreaking havoc in the air. Chi, chi, chi. An ear-piercing sound came from the air. The 2 powers devoured each other, wanting to completely destroy the other. Crack! At this moment, a terrifying explosion sounded. One of the black dragons finally couldn't hold on any longer, and its huge body directly collapsed. In the next moment, a miserable cry sounded, but it was instantly annihilated. The endless turbid waves gradually became clear. A figure appeared in the night sky. It was Nietion. As for the other figure, it had completely disappeared. In the intense battle with Nietion, Black Dragon Yin had died on the spot. Everyone looked at the silver-haired figure in the sky. Their eyes flickered with surprise and shock. Who would have thought that Black Dragon Yin had actually died at the hands of Nietion? Moreover, he had been killed by Nietion using his own Dragon Mark Talisman. The power of the Dragon Mark Talisman is indeed terrifying. Nietion's figure towered in the air, and his eyes flickered continuously. The power of the Dragon Mark Talisman had exceeded his expectations. He could feel that after fusing with the talisman, his 9 dragon veins had become even more powerful. Even the power of his bloodline had become stronger. His martial body had also become stronger. The Dragon Mark Talisman had increased his power in almost every aspect. More importantly, Nietion had been able to kill Black Dragon Yin just now because he had used the power of the demons. The power of the 4 demons had fused with the power of the Dragon Mark Talisman, and an unimaginable power had erupted. The Dragon Mark Talisman seemed to be very compatible with the power of the demons. When the 2 powers fused together, it was very frightening. At this time, Nietion looked into the void and sensed a strange power surging in the air. It had not dissipated yet. It was the Dragon Mark Talisman that had dissipated from Black Dragon Yun's body. Without hesitation, he waved his hand and absorbed the power of the Dragon Mark Talisman. The 9 dragon veins had fused with the Dragon Mark Talisman, but Nietion did not feel any backlash from the talisman. It was as if the talisman had fused with his supreme dragon vein, and the backlash had disappeared. It was very miraculous. Don't tell me it's because of Shue Er's tear. Nietion frowned as a strange look appeared in his eyes. He had already sensed that the tear of the princess had fused with his bloodline and seemed to have some kind of effect on it. Moreover, the tear of the princess had released a powerful power at the critical moment to protect Nietion. Otherwise, he would not have been able to stand until now. That teardrop, what was it? Nietion was puzzled. He knew that it was the tear of the princess that had fused with his bloodline that allowed him to instantly recover his strength. Chapter 1569. The Emperor's Tear. Nietion really couldn't understand what it was. However, he could sense that Snow's teardrop was indeed extraordinary. It must contain some sort of secret. The power of a single tear is so great. Nietion frowned, his eyes flashing. He sighed in his heart. Cher, just who are you? Cher and the Emperor of the Netherworld had a special relationship. If Cher's power was already so abnormal, then it was hard to imagine just how terrifying the Emperor of the Netherworld was. Yin Xian is gone. At this time, Yin Xian suddenly sensed something and shouted. Nietion couldn't help but be surprised. Turning around, he saw that Yin Xian was indeed gone. This old fox is really ruthless, running away just like that. Nietion frowned and said gravely. Yin Xian must have escaped while Nietion and Black Dragon were fighting. Otherwise, there was no way Nietion wouldn't have sensed him. Not even caring for his own son, Yin Xian was truly ruthless. Oh no! Seeing Yin Xian escape, Yin Xian's expression changed, and he cried out in alarm. Yin Xian knew how to enter Little Rock Village. Once he left, he would definitely bring back the experts of Green Wolf Bastion for revenge. At that time, Little Rock Village would welcome an even greater calamity. Elder Yun, now that things have come to this, let the villagers go into the Forbidden Grounds to take refuge. As for how to deal with Green Wolf Bastion, we need to slowly discuss it. Nietion naturally knew what Yin Xian was worried about. His eyes flashed as he spoke indifferently. It was definitely too late to chase after Yin Xian now. The most important thing now was to protect the villagers. Yin Xian nodded. Now that things had come to this, they could only do this. At this time, almost all of the villagers had entered the Forbidden Grounds. There were only 20 to 30 people left. Moments later, all of the villagers safely entered the forbidden grounds. Nie Tian, Chun Wuqing, and the others also entered the forbidden grounds. Although the Yun family's rules forbade outsiders from entering the forbidden grounds, Yun Qing could no longer care about these rules due to the circumstances. If it weren't for Nie Tian and the others, Little Rock Village would have already become a slaughterhouse. Yun Qing couldn't let Nie Tian and the others stay outside the forbidden area. How could he know that Nie Tian had long entered the forbidden area? By the time everyone had entered the forbidden area, the passage marked by Fat Cat had disappeared. Yun Qing arranged for people to do a head count. There were only about 600 villagers left, and most of them were women and children. There were only a dozen adult men left, and all of them were severely injured. Sigh. When Yun Qing learned of the casualties among the villagers, he couldn't help but let out a long sigh. He didn't think that the peaceful Little Rock Village would become like this. Yun Xian, oh Yun Xian, you shouldn't have done this. Yun Qing let out a long sigh and cursed. His already aged face became even more aged. Yun Xian had killed his son and colluded with Green Wolf Stronghold, causing so many innocent villagers to suffer. His actions were infuriating. Old bastard Yun Xian, I'll kill you with my own hands. At this moment, Yun Tian already knew that his father had died at the hands of Yun Xian and his son. The anger in his heart could be imagined, and he hated Yun Xian to the core. Elder Yun, now that things have come to this, there's no point in being sad. Next, we need to think about how to deal with Green Wolf Stronghold. Nie Tian took a step forward and looked at Yun Qing as he spoke in a deep voice. Yun Xian had escaped, and Green Wolf Stronghold would attack Little Rock Village again. Moreover, Yun Xian also knew how to enter the forbidden area, so the people of Little Rock Village were still not safe. Mr. Nya, the people of Green Wolf Stronghold are too strong. The people of Little Rock Village alone cannot resist them. Yun Qing looked at Nie Tian and was moved. Then his knees sank to the ground, and he begged, Mr. Nya, please save Little Rock Village. Elder Yun, what are you doing? Nie Tian saw a Yun Qing kneel and hurriedly helped him up. He said in a deep voice, I am also responsible for what happened to Little Rock Village. If I hadn't injured Yun Xian and his son, they probably wouldn't have taken such a risk. I will stay and fight with Little Rock Village against the enemy. On behalf of the 600 villagers of Little Rock Village, I thank Mr. Nya. Yun Qing bowed deeply, his expression sorrowful and emotional. In reality, he knew that even without Nie Tian, Green Wolf Stronghold would attack sooner or later. Since Yun Xian had already contacted Green Wolf Stronghold, then whether or not they could enter Little Rock Village was not something he could decide. Nie Tian faintly smiled and did not say anything more. Wanting to save the villagers of Little Rock Village was not an easy task. Zhao Yongji was only the third boss of Green Wolf Stronghold. This undoubtedly meant that there were two more powerful people in Green Wolf Stronghold. But what worried Nie Tian even more was that if there was another powerful force behind Green Wolf Stronghold, then it would be terrible. Next, Yun Qing settled the villagers down in the forbidden area. No one knew when the Green Wolf Stronghold's people would appear again. Nie Tian inspected the injuries of Chun Wuqing and the others. Their injuries were very serious. Even though they had taken Yang Zhongqiu's divine pill, it would take at least 10 days to half a month for them to completely recover. Elder Yin, there are some things I must tell you. At this time, Nie Tian came to Yun Qing's side and no longer hid anything. He told him everything about his night exploration of the Forbidden Area and the Nine Dragons ley line. After hearing Nie Tian's story, Yun Qing was not too surprised, but his expression became a little gloomy. He said in a low voice, So you're saying that you are here for the Nine Dragons ley line? Yes. Nie Tian nodded and looked at Yun Qing with a burning gaze. Elder Yun, you also know about the Nine Dragons ley line? When Yun Qing heard about the Nine Dragons ley line, he was not too surprised. Instead, he was very calm. This made Nie Tian feel very strange. Yun Qing nodded and said, Mr. Nie, to tell you the truth, the Yun family's ancient books have recorded the Nine Dragons ley line. The reason why the Yun family settled in Little Rock Village was to protect the Nine Dragons ley line. Our Yun family is the guardian family of the 9 dragons ley line. Guardian family of the 9 dragons ley line? Tion's eyes darkened with surprise. In fact, when he first came to Little Rock Village, he had some doubts. The Yun family was not a normal family, and Little Rock Village was not a normal mountain village. There were steep cliffs and ancient killing arrays protecting the village. The villager's strength was not something a normal mountain villager could compare to. All of these doubts were solved now. So the Yun family was the guardian family of the 9 dragons ley line. Mr. Nya, our Yun family is a family that has existed since the ancient times. Moreover, we once flourished during the ancient times and were one of the few great families of that time. However, for some unknown reason, the Yun family's ancestor led the family to hide from the world and chose to protect the 9 dragons ley line. Yun Qing continued to speak. At this point, he sighed and smiled. It's just that after the Yun family's ancestors' generation fell, the strength of the Yun family's cultivators declined with each generation. Until now, it has become like this. So that's how it is. Tion nodded slightly. He did not think that a remote Yun family could be one of the great families in the past. Tion estimated that the Yun family's ancestor lived in an era even older than the Sword Elder and Ni jamming.